Chapter 2309, Above Expectations. Futian and the others did not leave immediately after they returned to the academy. Although it was rumored that many relics appeared in the original realm, Futian knew he couldn't take them all. Now the changes in the entire original realm intensified, with more and more relics surfacing. If he were to grab everything out there, it would almost certainly cause public outrage and create enemies out of the whole world. Take the current situation, for instance. He had the inheritance from several great emperors, thus becoming the focus of many powerful cultivators. If it weren't for the teacher who stood behind him, these top forces would have already attacked him and the Heavenly Mandate Academy. They wouldn't be waiting so docilely in the starry sky world for him to cultivate in peace. One principality wouldn't be capable of dealing with him, but what if they combined their forces? If they couldn't go to the starry sky world to challenge him, it certainly wouldn't be a problem for them to challenge Heavenly Mandate Academy. Futian knew very well that he had to give up some of the opportunities to other principalities in a situation like this instead of swallowing them all. However, Futian had also dispatched cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy to go out and assess the current state of affairs in the outside world. Even if they were not planning to take action now, they must monitor the current movement of the original realm. Now that he had complete control over the 9 supreme regions, he also had eyes and ears in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, so he had an idea of everything that was happening. However, to know the occurrences in the 3,000 realms of the Great Path and beyond, messengers had to be sent out. At present, all that was known had been spread far and wide. Perhaps some had discovered the relics while they were exploring, but they did not make it public. After all, no one wanted to attract even more rivals to this competition. Futian's circumstances were, in fact, a microcosm of all the forces in the entire original realm. All the forces had begun to mobilize, as the entire original realm was developing in this unknown direction. At this time, somewhere inside the original realm, suddenly heaven and earth underwent a terrible and violent change. This space began to collapse as a terrible dark vortex manifested. Later, a bright and brilliant divine light shot out from it as a group of people appeared with the divine light and stepped out of the vortex. The temperament of this group of people was extraordinary, and one single glance revealed that all of them were unusual, to say the least. They surveyed their surroundings, and their leader was heard marveling. The original realm! This must be the world before the collapse of the heavenly path. An old man next to him nodded. It has long been rumored that the original realm was a land of ruins. Those at the bottom continued to cultivate here, but they never expected that there would still be changes in the original realm. Do you know why? The leader continued to ask. The cultivators next to them looked thoughtful but then shook their heads. Perhaps someone thought that the world has been quiet for too long, the man said with a smile. But then his smile gradually receded as his inscrutable eyes stared into the distance. He expanded his divine consciousness to perceive the way between heaven and earth. He was heard murmuring, "Far too weak. If it weren't for the great changes in the original realm, he probably would never set foot in this land." As the man took a step forward, the others followed one after the other. A terrible aura permeated the space between heaven and earth, and there were traces of invisible divine light surrounding the area where they were, so they appeared as if they were some deities. At the same time, in other parts of the original realm, similar scenes played out asynchronously. Just as Futian and the others discussed at the Heavenly Mandate Academy, more and more powerful cultivators made their way into this world. Many of them were peak powers that had previously dismissed the original realm as inconsequential. Still, the changes in the original realm continued. Somewhere in the original realm, many cultivators stood in the void. Their eyes looked up and forward, and somewhere further up in the vast nothingness, the entire space in the void was tossing and roaring. The space began to crack, and from those terrible fissures, massive structures gradually emerged and became visible in front of them. An ancient aura hit them in the face, like ancient mountain ranges from yore. There was an atmosphere of decay that harbored within, as well as a heavy sensation of death. Furthermore, there was a faint breath that quickened everyone's heartbeat. It was as if this aura would not dissipate for years to come. At the same time, In another area of the original realm, a similar scene played out. The space of the void was torn apart, opened by some top cultivator with swordsmanship. It felt like the crack in this space was like a prison, and all the ancient relics were confined within. When this prison was broken open, the relics were released. Slowly, buildings re-emerged in the world. These buildings were full of ancient aura but also accompanied by a sense of death. As these fissures widened, these newly released relics were becoming more and more terrifying. It turned out to be a boundless and gigantic city. What they had seen seemed to be just the tip of the iceberg. However, this city embodied an ambience of dilapidation, with broken walls and remnants of beams everywhere. It was as if it had experienced some catastrophe in a bygone era. It was extremely fortunate that some of these relics had been preserved and that they had not vanished in the destruction once upon a time. The top figure who cleft open the space in the void waited quietly beside him, watching a majestic and massive city gradually reveal itself. The entire original realm was constantly changing. The prophecy regarding the changes between heaven and earth originating in the original realm began to spread. By now, they were known to just about everyone. People started to believe in the prophecy. All the changes in the original realm made those powerful major forces tremble. Even the cultivators from the 3,000 realms of the Great Path had heard of this prophecy, and their hearts were greatly disturbed. No one knew what the original realm would look like in the future. In the cottage inside the Heavenly Mandate Academy, Futian was cultivating here when a group of men arrived. They were cultivators such as Old Ma, Emperor Nan, Xiao Dingtian, and the clan lord of the Dou tribe. All of them came from the outside. "What has happened to stir all the elders thus?" asked Futian, as he detected the solemn expressions on the faces of several top Renhuang. "The changes that have taken place in the original realm now far exceed our expectations, and there are more and more ancient relics appearing in various places," Emperor Nan said to Futian. Futian's eyes sharpened when he heard this. If Emperor Nan said so, the changes in the outside world must have been drastic enough to cause Emperor Nan's concern. In addition, the cultivators from the outside world have arrived. As far as Divine Prefecture is concerned, it is said that Ancient God Clan has arrived. Emperor Nan continued. Futian's eye focused a bit more as he whispered, "The Ancient God Clan?" "Yes, the Ancient God Clan. The Ancient God Clan that has lived on for countless centuries produced deities and still holds the heirs of the remains of the gods, who are qualified to be called the Ancient God Clan. They are the true power that stands at the peak. Even the Imperial Palace has to pay them proper respect," said Emperor Nan. Futian, in turn, was quite uneasy when he heard what Emperor Nan had to say. It seemed that this time, all parts of the world had been disrupted. When Futian was at the Heavenly Mandate Academy, some top forces from Divine Prefecture had come to visit him. However, as he was in no mood to socialize, he gave Old Ma the task to receive them in his stead. The truth was Futian needn't care much about these visitors anymore, especially those common forces at the top. With the power that was currently in the hands of the Academy, coupled with his own status today, even peak Renhuangs with perfect great paths did not have much to brag about in front of him. However, at this time, Futian personally received a group of visitors who were old acquaintances. More than 20 years ago, these cultivators from Song Imperial City of Divine Prefecture had sought out Futian. At the time, they wanted to take over the Heavenly Mandate Academy and force Futian to cooperate with them, thus making Heavenly Mandate Academy a representative branch of Song Imperial City in the original realm. However, their overture was rebuffed by Futian. And now, Futian's status was no longer that of 20 years ago, and the Heavenly Mandate Academy was no longer like it had been. The cultivators from Song Imperial City came with sincerity to form an alliance, without any ambitions as they had in the past. The Futian of today was someone that all the cultivators from Divine Prefecture desired to befriend. At the same time, in some other location, a group of cultivators materialized in the void. This group of people had astonishing aura, and were all dressed in black, looking serious and solemn. The man leading the group did not appear to be his senior. He looked like he was only 30 years or so, but his actual age in cultivation was something else entirely. There was a sense of dominance in those dark eyes of his, which emitted a strong sense of coercion. The aura of all the cultivators around him was incredibly frightening, as every one of them was a top-notch character. No matter which world, few major forces could come up with such an astounding display of power. Now that great changes are taking place in the original realm, rumor has it that there are many ancient relics in the void world outside the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. I wonder what will we encounter? A cultivator in all black asked. His voice was low and reverent. After so many years, I didn't expect that the original realm would change so drastically. The changes of heaven and earth arise in the original realm. I would like to know just how the original realm will dominate these changes of heaven and earth. Someone else spoke up as they looked at the young man in the lead. But the young man looked down to glance at the boundless void below and said, "Let's go to the heavenly mandate realm first." The heaven mandate realm? The cultivators behind him looked puzzled, but the young man nodded and continued. The heaven mandate realm, the heavenly mandate academy, to see someone. Many around him didn't understand his intentions. Only a very special few knew the reason behind the youth's intention to go to the Heavenly Mandate Academy to meet this special someone. This was a top secret, and few were privy to this information. Mei Ting. Where is he? Someone asked, referring to the Devil General from the Devil World, Mei Ting. He should be in the Heavenly Mandate realm, the young man replied. Let's go. When he finished speaking, his figure floated forward, turning into a black light that moved at an incredible speed. The rest of the cultivators caught up with him, following along. In the Heavenly Mandate realm, Mei Ting did not fight and search for these ancient relics. He was still drinking within the bounds of the Heavenly Mandate city, much like a hopeless drunkard. However, only he himself knew that although the wine was good, he didn't really drink it for the taste. He was staying in the Heavenly Mandate city for himself. He wanted to know certain things, which he still had no clue about. Perhaps time would give him the answer he sought. Suddenly, Mei Ting peered into the sky above, and his face revealed some surprise, and his eyes betrayed his emotions. He saw a group of men clad in black descended from the firmament, coming directly toward him as they landed above the tavern. The tavern seemed to feel that coercion. Everyone inside fell into dead silence. Mei Ting's gaze was directed at the young man and the cultivators who surrounded him. He said, "You have arrived as well." The changes in the original realm had even attracted people from the Devil World. "Mei Ting, you are having a good time," a demonic cultivator commented. These cultivators were from the Devil World, and like Mei Ting, they were from the Devil Imperial Palace. All of them were supreme cultivators in the Devil World. "Are you here for the relics of the original realm?" asked Mei Ting. Everyone nodded. The young demonic cultivator in the lead took a meaningful look at Mei Ting, then turned his gaze to the far distance where a majestic and imposing structure stood. "That must be the Heavenly Mandate Academy, right?" the young man asked. Mei Ting looked at him, then in the direction of Heavenly Mandate Academy. He knew what the other was thinking. He responded, "It is indeed. Indeed, Mr. Mei is in the mood." The young man smiled and said, "Cultivators from all sides are busy looking for relics, but you, sir, are here drinking and enjoying the view of the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Can you enlighten us as to your fascination with this place?" "No fascination to speak of, I'm just bored," Mei Ting replied casually. This young man was rather special. He held superior status in the Devil World as one of Devil Emperor's direct disciples. However, as one of the Devil Generals himself, Mei Ting's status was not any lesser than the young man's, so he didn't bother affording the other with particular courtesy. Furthermore, the cultivators from the Devil World were somewhat different. The rule where the weak were preyed upon by the strong was more pronounced in their world. There were not many politics involved, only strength was the true metric for everything. As long as one was strong enough, one need not worry about offending anyone else. In the Devil World, conflicts and frictions between cultivators who cultivated together in the Devil Imperial Palace were commonplace. "Bored?" The young demonic cultivator smiled and continued, "Perhaps it is because Mr. Mei is more interested in that academy. I have heard some things in the Devil World." Now that I am here in the original realm, I plan to visit their young king. When he finished speaking, he levitated into the air and headed towards the Heavenly Mandate Academy. All the cultivators from the Devil World followed his lead. Mei Ting didn't try to stop them when he saw this but allowed the others to do as they pleased. He wasn't too worried about anything, as he knew the true strength that Heavenly Mandate Academy held currently. In truth, he was rather expectant of any potential conflicts. It would make things that much more interesting. Picking up the wine cup, Mei Ting drained another cup of wine, but his eyes were still focused on what was ahead. The real reason for that young man to come here to meet him was not Yi Futian, the young king of the original realm, as he called him. He thought that it must be because of Yu Xing. In the Heavenly Mandate Academy, Yi Futian was receiving the cultivators from Song Imperial City. At this time, they seemed to have perceived something as they raised their heads, looking towards the void. They saw that many top figures in the academy had risen into the sky, a grave expression on their faces. They were focusing on a group of cultivators in black that appeared above the firmament. They had sensed traces of oppression, indicating that these visitors were uncommonly powerful. The cultivators from Song Imperial City were equally alarmed when they saw this group of people. The old man who was in the lead was a little surprised. The cultivators from the Devil World had also arrived, and they had come to the Heavenly Mandate Academy first. Yi Futian directed his attention there, and saw the young man who was in the lead. The two locked eyes, and Yi Futian felt a sense of hostility from the other. He was a little curious. Who was this person? Chapter 23:11 Disciple of the Devil Emperor. Yi Futian sensed the demonic might that circled this group of people. From it, he roughly guessed where this group had come from. Although Yi Futian did not know the identity of the young demonic cultivator before him, there was no doubt that his group was from the Devil World. Otherwise, the entire group would not have such an intense demonic aura. The cultivators of the Song Imperial City glanced at Yi Futian. They recalled that Mei Ting had also previously come to the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Why had the Devil World cultivators not searched for the relic but instead came here to find Yi Futian? From the expression in the leading youth's eyes, they were clearly here for him. Could it be that there was some hidden secret behind this? The youth walked down towards Yi Futian. Blind Tai, Old Ma, and the others came forward to block him off, but Yi Futian waved his hand slightly. Blind Tai and the others stepped down, and did not block the youth from the Devil World, allowing him to descend and land not far from Yi Futian. The demonic youth said, "College Chief of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, Palace Lord of Ziwei Imperial Palace, the current ruler of the original realm, the top monstrous figure in the original realm who obtained the sacred remains of Xinjiao the Great Emperor and the teachings of Great Emperor Ziwei and Shinin the Great, Yi Futian." He seemed to know Yi Futian quite well. The youth from the Devil World already knew all the things that Yi Futian had been through. Yi Futian looked at the other party. The cultivators from the Devil World who had appeared in the original realm before this mainly consisted of Mei Ting. Yi Futian also had some interactions with him. However, that was mainly due to Yu Xing. Yi Futian never imagined that there were others in the Devil World who paid so much attention to him. It seemed that Yu Xing's status in the Devil World was extraordinary. Otherwise, this youth would not pay so much attention to Yi Futian's existence. After all, from the looks of this lineup, the youth from the Devil World in front of him should be an extraordinary figure in the Devil World. "Who are you, sir?" asked Yi Futian. "I am Xiao Mu from the Devil World," replied the youth. Yi Futian might not be aware of the significance of that name, but in the Devil World, this name was already renowned far and wide. He was one of the direct disciples of the Devil Emperor. He had powerful cultivation and extraordinary status. A direct disciple of the Devil Emperor might inherit the title themselves one day. Whoever was the strongest would have the highest possibility of inheriting it. "Xiao Mu," Yi Futian mumbled to himself. He did not know much about the Devil World, so he naturally had not heard of his name. However, from the lineup before him, Yi Futian had his suspicions. He said, "Are you a cultivator from Devil Imperial Palace?" "I am a disciple of the Devil Emperor," Xiao Mu replied. The expression of the surrounding cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy immediately turned serious. Compared to the monstrous figures from the divine prefecture who came before, the identity of this youth before them was even more spectacular. Who would dare to offend a disciple of the Devil Emperor so curtly? Even though Futian had the backing of Master from Four Corner Village, with the other party's status, it was worthless in their eyes. Why had such a figure come here? Futian nodded his head slightly. He had a rough guess as to why Xiaomu had come. Now Futian was somewhat curious. What was his godfather's status in the devil world? What about Yuxing's status? Now, he was certain that his godfather was a cultivator from the devil world. However, Futian did not know why his godfather had taken care of Yuxing and him. What secrets were involved in this? What happened 300 years ago? Futian believed that it would not be long before he would stumble upon the truth. After all, he could now come in contact with figures at the very top. Even a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor had come looking for him. When Futian reached the peak of the Renhuang Plain, he would probably have the opportunity to meet the figures at the very top. "What business do you have with the Heavenly Mandate Academy?" Futian asked as he looked up at Xiaomu. His voice was very calm. Xiaomu gave Futian a somewhat strange look. He seemed to look highly upon Futian, as expected of the current top monstrous figure of the original realm. Even after hearing who Xiaomu was, he had actually remained unshaken and was still calm. The white-haired youth before him was an extremely proud figure. "I merely came to see what sort of person the young ruler of the original realm is like," said Xiaomu. As he said this, his jet-black eyes became intense. They were a pair of demonic eyes. He looked towards Futian as demonic might circled around his own figure. A powerful demonic aura flowed frenziedly and began to spread out around him. There was one part that Xiaomu had not said out loud. He wanted to see what sort of person that fellow's best friend was like and where level his cultivation and abilities were. Futian looked at the other party's eyes. The pair of deep, demonic eyes was terrifying. They bore endless overbearing pressure. A vast pressure pressed down on Futian's will. He was put into a hallucination. The person before him was no longer an approachable youth but instead a demon. It stood there towering above all things, gazing down on all existence. The demon faced Futian, and its overbearing pressure pressed down on him. The demonic might could crush a person's will. Divine light similarly shot out from Futian's eyes. It was dazzling. Even amidst the hallucination, Futian stood on his spot quietly. The divine light flowed around him. His white hair and white robe accentuated his unparalleled temperament. It was as though he was a deity. Even when faced with the pressure from a demon, he remained unperturbed, and his facial expression was calm. The overbearing demonic might did not have any effect on him. Futian had experienced many things to reach his current plane of cultivation. He had faced the might of the will of the great emperors many times. He couldn't be crushed by Xiaomu's will. Even though Xiaomu's will was domineering, it alone was not enough to cause Futian's will to be shaken. The surrounding cultivators all stood silently as they watched the two figures facing each other head-on. One had black hair and was garbed in a black robe, while the other had white hair and was garbed in a white robe. Both of them were equally outstanding. Their robes fluttered in the wind. They seemed to be looking at each other casually. However, a powerful gale was forming around them and stirring up debris. Their gazes alone contained such astonishing might. Even the top cultivators could faintly sense a pressure acting on them. They unleashed their auras of the great path to block the gale from spreading outwards. Otherwise, the Heavenly Mandate Academy would most likely be ruined by this raging gale. In the distance, Mei Ting glanced in their direction. As he had speculated, Xiaomu was here to check Futian out. Xiaomu was most likely curious about Futian's ability. Xiaomu was naturally doing this because of Yuxing. Rumble. Suddenly, a stronger gale swept out. The demonic might churned and roared. An extremely overbearing aura gushed towards Futian. At the same time, the divine light on Futian's body grew brighter. Intense rumbling could be heard coming from his body of the great path. The gale became more and more violent, and enveloped both of them in it. One by one, the top figures in the Heavenly Mandate Academy unleashed their auras. They shielded the entire Heavenly Mandate Academy in a light shroud. The next moment, Xiao Mu and Yi Futian shot up into the sky. Their speed was frightening. They were akin to two beams of light that shot up into the heavens. They were high above in the sky in an instant. Their raging auras of the Great Path exploded, expanding towards the Heavenly Mandate City. Chapter 23:12 Demonic Form and Divine Body. Xiao Mu was an 8th Tianhuang and a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor. Yi Futian was a 7th Tianhuang. He controlled the sacred remains of Xinjiao the Great Emperor. He was also the inheritor of the teachings of Great Emperor Ziwei and Shinin the Great. One was a top-level monstrous figure of the Devil World who was approaching the pinnacle. Another was the top monstrous figure of the original realm, and the most prominent figure in the realm at the moment. The two of them suddenly confronted each other, standing across each other in the sky. Prior to this, there had been no premonition of a fight. With just an exchange of glances, they seemed to understand the other party's intention. Be it Xiao Mu or the current Yi Futian, both of them had terrifying cultivation. The auras that the two of them released kept expanding, enveloping the vast space. All around the Heavenly Mandate City, countless people looked up into the sky. Their hearts were trembling intensely. Someone had actually come to challenge Yi Futian? For the people of the Heavenly Mandate realm, Yi Futian was already a legendary figure. He was the object of the faith of countless people, especially the cultivators from the younger generation. They worshipped him like a deity, and he was the goal that countless people pursued. He had pulled off too many miracles. The black-robed demonic cultivator was also extremely frightening. Who was he to dare challenge the current Yi Futian? I cultivated in the Devil World for more than 80 years. I joined Devil Imperial Palace when I was 30 and was later accepted by the Devil Emperor as a direct disciple. Now, I am an 8th-tier demonic emperor. In terms of cultivation plane, I hold a slight advantage over you. I will hold back a little, Xiao Mu said as he looked at the figure standing across from him. His voice was overbearing and imposing. It contained an intense self-confidence. He claimed that he would hold back a little in his fight against Yi Futian, and that he did not want to hold an advantage in terms of cultivation. Yi Futian's white robe danced in the sky. His expression was still calm. He looked at the other party and said, "There is no need to do so. I have cultivated for almost the same amount of time as you. Although my cultivation is at the 7th Tianhuang plane, I have yet to encounter an equal match at the same tier. So, you don't have to hold back." Even when faced with a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor who was at a higher level than him, Yi Futian was still confident that he could put up a good fight against the other party. His confidence stirred up the emotions of countless cultivators in the Heavenly Mandate City. The demonic cultivator was actually a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor from the Devil World. Existences at his level were all cultivators who stood at the pinnacle of the cultivation world. Even so, Yi Futian, who had a lower plane of cultivation, was still confident that he could put up a fight against Xiao Mu. Perhaps Xiao Mu would be the strongest opponent that Yi Futian had faced so far. Mei Ting, who was drinking wine in a tavern in the distance, looked in their direction too. He was also very interested in the battle. Yi Futian was a legendary figure that Yu Xing willingly followed. Mei Ting wanted to see for himself how strong Yi Futian currently was. Xiao Mu would most likely be a huge challenge for Yi Futian. As one of the 8 great devil generals in the Devil World, Mei Ting was well aware of the ability of the direct disciples of the Devil Emperor. Those monstrous figures in the outer realms could not hold a candle to them. Being a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor meant that Xiao Mu received personal instruction from the Devil Emperor. Xiao Mu's demonic art was taught by the Devil Emperor. The top figures from the Heavenly Mandate Academy had serious expressions too. They also realized how powerful Yi Futian's opponent was. Xiao Mu was someone extraordinary, even for them. It was rare for them to encounter a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor. The status of Xiao Mu was similar to that of Spear Emperor Diyu, who came to the original realm more than 20 years ago with Princess Dongwang. Spear Emperor Diyu was a direct disciple of Dongwang the Great. The Devil Emperor, who dwelled far in the Devil World, was a mighty legendary figure. How strong would his disciple be? The auras emanating from Yi Futian and Xiao Mu grew more and more frightening. The demonic might roared and churned. At the same time, intense rumbling of the great path could be heard from Yi Futian's body. His body turned into the way and became the divine body of the great path. It was domineering. In the previous battles, the Renhuangs at the same tier as Yi Futian could not withstand a blow from his flesh. One could imagine how menacing the divine body, which Yi Futian inherited from Xinjiao the great emperor, was. Seemingly sensing the terror of Yi Futian's flesh, Xiao Mu's body was also metamorphosing. His demonic form was instantly covered with terrifying lightning. Black and purple divine lights gathered and merged with his body. One could sense the power of his flesh even better with their will. His flesh was fully charged with overbearing, destructive power. The gazes of the cultivators from the Song Imperial City narrowed when they saw this scene. The cultivators from the Divine Prefecture were rather unfamiliar with the Devil Emperor. However, those long-standing top forces from the Divine Prefecture heard rumors about the Devil Emperor before. An elder said, "Rumor has it that the Devil Emperor is a one-in-a-million genius in the devil world. He has created many demonic arts which are unprecedented and unsurpassable. He is a bona fide legend. The demonic arts which he created are all top demonic techniques in the world. They are the pinnacle of demonic techniques. Furthermore, it is said that the Devil Emperor suits his teaching in accordance with his students' aptitude. Based on the cultivation of each demonic cultivator, he teaches them different demonic arts so that the demonic arts are compatible with the learners." The elder looked at the sky and continued, "Rumor has it that all the disciples of the current Devil Emperor have inherited very formidable power. Since this Xiao Mu is one of his direct disciples, he must have inherited some form of demonic art from the Devil Emperor. I'm curious to find out how strong he is." The facial expressions of many top figures from the Heavenly Mandate Academy turned solemn when they heard the elder's words. They were not sure how strong the Devil Emperor was. However, the Devil Emperor was the one who ended the chaos in the devil world. He was the legendary figure who united and ruled over the entire devil world. His name was on par with that of Dongwang the Great. He was one of the very few cultivators who stood at the peak. How strong would his direct disciple be? Even though they had lots of confidence in Yi Futian, they were still uncertain about whether or not he could surpass the difference between their planes and win the fight against this direct disciple of the Devil Emperor. The top figures would not have worried about Yi Futian if his opponent was not a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor, but instead a direct disciple of any of the top forces from the Divine Prefecture. After all, the direct disciples of the top forces paled into insignificance compared with the direct disciples of the Devil Emperor. Xiao Mu's gaze was locked on Yi Futian. Both of them could sense how powerful the flesh of their opponent was. One was a demonic form, while the other was a divine body surrounded by endless runes and divine light. "Let me experience how powerful the body of the Great Path inherited from Xinjiao the Great Emperor is," Xiao Mu said loudly. His voice was deep and resonant. It caused the space to shake. He took a step forward. He didn't unleash any demonic arts. Instead, he intended to clash into Yi Futian head-on with his flesh. His super-demonic form was also an inheritance from the Devil Emperor. He refined it with demonic lightning to create his own demonic form of the Great Path. He had successfully forged the super-destructive heavenly demon form. Each and every disciple of the Devil Emperor had to cultivate the super-demonic form. Then, they had to merge it with their own flesh to create their own demonic form. The demonic cultivators were very particular about the cultivation of their bodies. Without strong flesh, it was hard for them to unleash the might of the demonic arts. As a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor, Xiao Mu had cultivated his body to its utmost limit. His body was domineering. When Xiao Mu stepped forward, the entire sky shook and thundered. The demonic might churned and exerted great pressure on everyone else. Yi Futian's flesh was almost invincible. Since he had forged the divine body, he had not met anyone who could battle him with their flesh alone. However, now that he was facing Xiao Mu, even he felt a sense of pressure. It made him recall the initial sensation when he first met Yu Xing. Yu Xing's body was very strong. Aside from his demonic art cultivation, it was also due to his innate abilities. Having cultivated in the devil world, Yu Sheng's body must have been trained to an even more terrifying level. Yi Futian wondered how Yu Sheng's cultivation was progressing now. However, Yi Futian was not worried about Yu Sheng's cultivation at all. That fellow would certainly not fall behind. His figure pounced forward, and he also stepped out. Both of them did not unleash law power attacks. Instead, they walked straight towards each other. Even so, before they even clashed, an extremely ferocious storm swept out. Intense rumbling of the great path filled the skies. The rumbling caused many cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy down below to have goosebumps as they watched the terrifying scene in the sky above. Was this the strength of the flesh that could be achieved by a cultivator? Even the giant-level figures were astonished. Ren Huangqin stood out to protect the Heavenly Mandate Academy, preventing it from being damaged by the shockwaves from the battle in the sky. In the sky above, demonic light and divine light swept out. The two of them walked straight towards each other. Then, both of them punched out towards their opponent at the same time. There was no fancy display of technique. Both of them unleashed terrifying attacks with just their bodies straight towards their opponent. Bang! The sky shook violently. An unparalleled storm swept out around them. With both of them at the center, a frightening cyclone was formed. Their figures were not sent flying. Both of them stood there, straight and tall. Yi Futian felt a menacing demonic light surge into his body. The demonic light contained unparalleled destructive power. It wanted to tear apart his flesh. However, the divine light of the great path circulated within him. His flesh was almost perfect, and would not be destroyed so easily. Xiao Mu similarly felt a powerful shockwave surge up his arm and into his demonic form. However, his demonic form had also been honed and trained. In extraordinary locations in the devil world, it had undergone the baptism of countless strikes of demonic lightning. It was an immortal and indestructible body. Even ninth tier Renhuangs would have a hard time trying to destroy him. Yet Xiao Mu was surprised. Yi Futian, who was clashing with him, had not been knocked back. He was taking Xiao Mu head-on. It was clear that Yi Futian's body was indeed top tier. To be able to encounter such an opponent, Xiao Mu was feeling somewhat excited. Menacing demonic light flowed, and absolute power gathered in his arm. Once again, he punched out. Faced with his overbearing attack, an ordinary 8th tier demonic emperor would be annihilated with a mere punch. He would not need to attack twice. Chapter 23:13 Broadsword Will. The physical body constructed by Xiao Mu was the super-destructive heavenly demon form, with extreme destructive power. Not only was his body tempered to perfection, but once it collided with an opponent, it could tear and destroy the opponent apart immediately. When he was still cultivating in the devil world, there was once a very well-known demonic figure behaving with arrogance and insolence. However, with his physical body alone, Xiao Mu could smash the opponent's demonic form to pieces, killing him. With the terror brought on by his super-destructive heavenly demon form, Yi Futian's cultivation at 7th realm shouldn't be able to withstand even a single blow from him. However, the fact that Yi Futian's physical body was strong enough to compete with him excited Xiao Mu inexplicably. At this moment, with Xiao Mu in the middle, a series of black streamers of silent destruction fell down and surrounded him. They began to spread outward, turning the vast space into a domain of silent destruction as well. Every one of these black streams of light seemed to contain the ultimate aura of destruction. The booming roars from Yi Futian's body had become more intense. It seemed that there were many characters of the Great Path floating around him, a faint aura of swordsmanship circulating inside his body. It was as if his body had turned into a body of the sword. Yi Futian had cast his physical body with the Wei, and it was his chosen medium of cultivation. As far as collisions of physical bodies were concerned, he wasn't afraid of anyone, even those considered major figureheads. He didn't think that his physical body would be weaker than his opponent, even if this Xiao Mu were personally taught by the Devil Emperor himself, who was also in possession of a body in the extreme with a higher realm. Still, he was not afraid of a physical confrontation. The two collided again. It was like an encounter between gods and demons. Above the firmament, two domineering bodies continued to collide, causing the sky to erupt with another violent howl. Even the space seemed to tremble. An extremely heavy sensation hung in the air. Streamers of pitch-black destructive light appeared upon Futian, rushing into his body. But there was also a destructive broadsword will that invaded deep inside Xiao Mu, intending on destroying his way. In the terrible trembling reverberation of the sounds, the expressions on their faces never changed. They appeared extremely calm, as if they were not affected at all, when in fact, such terrifying attacks would have already shattered anyone with lesser cultivation. Below, those cultivators from the Devil World shuddered inwardly. All of them were from the Imperial Palace of the Devil World, and all of them were extraordinary cultivators. Clearly, they had a better idea than anyone else regarding the true strength of Xiao Mu's physical body. In their opinion, how could anyone from the land of the Divine Prefecture compete with the Devil Emperor's own direct disciple? However, Futian not only collided with him head-on but also confronted him when he was one realm lower. Was this the power of the body inherited from that legendary Xinjiao the Great Emperor from the ancient days of yore? It seemed that in the land of Divine Prefecture, this once abandoned land in the original realm, a supremely enchanting genius had been born. This strength was no less than any top enchanting geniuses from the Imperial Palace. No wonder this man created so many legends in the original realm, someone whispered. So, did Xiao Mu know that this man is extraordinary? Was that why he deliberately came to the Heavenly Mandate realm? To fight with him? Someone asked. Many of them did not know about the relationship between Futian and Yuxing, which was only known to a few. Perhaps. After all, this man is the #1 enchanting genius in the original realm. He should be proud of himself, given that he's able to fight Xiao Mu body to body. Someone responded. But the outcome will remain the same. Someone looked up into the sky. This was not the ultimate state of Xiao Mu's super-destructive heavenly demonic form. Super-destructive heavenly demonic form was derived from the Devil Emperor's super-demonic form, so its power is shockingly terrifying. Even though his opponent had inherited the body-refining method from Xinjiao the Great Emperor, Xiao Mu had inherited the body-refining demonic method of the Devil Emperor. Therefore, they were confident that the winner of this physical battle would be Xiao Mu. The collision above the firmament became even more fierce. Again and again, the two met in the blasts, but not only did their momentum not weaken any, but it was getting more powerful than ever. The fierce roar of the great path in the firmament seemed to indicate it was on the verge of collapsing when these bodies would shatter the great path. In the battle, the demonic aura from Xiao Mu intensified so that it was even more horrific. It was as if he was no longer a human but instead was made of the flesh cast by the ultimate destructive thunder. As he lifted his hands, hundreds of thousands of black demonic currents flowing into every part of his body so that his every move contained frightening destructive power. Gradually, Xiao Mu's physical body seemed to have undergone another transformation during the battle. It was now completely pitch black, turning into the ultimate demonic body. Bang! There was another violent collision. The two banged against each other again, and at the moment of collision, Futian felt an infinite destructive force rush into his body. Every part of his body was trembling, and he was knocked back. This was the first time the two had been separated by so much distance. Futian steadied himself and looked up at the other side. Xiao Mu stood there like a giant demon god at this moment. His eyes were pitch black and fixed on him, full of boundless dominance. He addressed Futian directly. Not bad. I didn't expect to have to use my true strength against you. You deserve to be called the new king of the original realm. His voice was domineering and confident, even tinged with a certain disdain. Divine light flowing around Futian as he looked at that demon body and said, You are not too bad yourself. This will force me to be a bit more serious. Huh! Xiao Mu frowned. What did Futian mean by force him to be a bit more serious? Did he mean that he didn't take it seriously before? His demonic eyes stared at Futian, and he saw the divine light flowing on Futian's body as an even more brilliant light burst from him. Faintly, He seemed to be hearing the sounds of Buddha and the divine light of the sun and the moon flowing about. The light reflected on that body, and a pattern was formed. Xiao Mu was somewhat alarmed. Before, was Yi Futian being casual, not using his full strength? Boom, boom, boom. In this instant, Yi Futian's body seemed to be howling fiercely like a terrifying behemoth, boundless divine splendor flowing about. His body moved forward and turned into a light, rushing straight towards Xiao Mu. At this moment, Xiao Mu's demonic eyes perceived Yi Futian as a deity, full of incomparable brilliance. Xiao Mu's eyes sharpened when he saw this before him. He looked extremely grave. He stepped forward, rocking the void as a massive demonic fist blasted forward, colliding with Yi Futian's fist. The people below looked above the firmament, and the two of them seemed to have transformed into real gods and demons. The great path was shattered with one blow. Then, under the shocking gazes of the cultivators from the devil world, Xiao Mu's body was knocked away, flying backward. A terrible aura of destruction appeared on that dark demonic body, and the two extreme powers of sun and shadow wreaked havoc in his body. Even as the ultimate demonic body, it was difficult to bear such polarized bodies. The demonic light flowed as Xiao Mu ground to a stop, staring at Yi Futian. He realized that he had, unexpectedly, lost to his opponent in the collision between physical bodies of the Great Path. The super-destructive heavenly demonic form was suppressed and repelled by the blow just now. In the exchange that truly mattered, he had lost. Steadying himself, demonic might roared from within Xiao Mu. A terrible demonic domain appeared between heaven and earth, shrouding the boundless space. He stared at Yi Futian and appeared to have lost the edge of that arrogance, but his spirit of confidence and dominance remained. Although he had heard of Yi Futian's reputation and knew of his relationship with Yi Xing, he never thought he would lose. Of course, the failure resulted from that physical collision didn't indicate a final outcome. Although cultivators of the demonic way tempered their physical bodies, it was definitely not the only thing that made them powerful. On top of everything, he was a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor. Above the firmament, pitch-black light streamers of demonic way flowed about and turned into demonic blades. A field of demonic blade appeared between heaven and earth. Infinite, pitch-black demonic blades moved about in the void, covering its vast terrain. The broadsword will was filled with endlessly fierce destruction and murderous intent. A horrible cloud of catastrophe gathered as if the power of dark thunder was converging. Behind him, a massive and boundless demonic blade appeared, capable of cutting through a corner of the sky. Xiao Mu stretched out his hand, and the heaven and the earth suddenly let out a savage roar. In the storm of destruction, a pitch-black demonic blade appeared in his hand. Xiao Mu grabbed the demonic blade, and an unparalleled destructive force burst out from him. Just that broadsword will alone seemed to tear through the power of the Great Path. When Yi Futian felt this power, his expression became grave. This broadsword will was indeed terrifying. Chapter 23:14 The Blade and the Rod. A strong broadsword will appeared in the entire field. Under this broadsword will, Yi Futian felt that everything he saw in front of him was changing. It was as if this place was no longer as it was previously. Instead, it was now filled with terrifying demon gods. These demon gods were each holding a demonic blade, standing in different positions, covering this corner of the sky. Terrifying broadsword will tore through the space, aiming toward him as if to crush his will completely. Just this broadsword will alone was enough to shock everyone into silence, capable of knocking them down. Any Renhuang who was not firm enough would doubtlessly crumble under this broadsword will, unable to bear its intimidation. Xiao Mu held the blade in both hands. At this moment, all the demon gods in the heavens seemed to be holding the demonic blade in their hands as well. A fierce storm of destruction swept across the space. Before the blade was discharged, Yi Futian could sense the oppression of the broadsword will slashing down to suppress him, a pressure so heavy it was almost suffocating. It was simply astounding. Even when he was facing those at the peak of Renhuang in the 9th realm, Yi Futian had never experienced such intense oppression. Of course, it may be that someone at this level hadn't really collided with him in the real sense of the word. But there was no doubt that Xiao Mu's own combat power was spectacularly horrific. After all, he was the direct disciple taught by the Devil Emperor himself, an Renhuang of the 8th realm. Once in the realm of Upper Renhuang, the gap in each step of the realm was significant, much like an insurmountable chasm. But Yi Futian was now facing a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor, who was an entire realm higher than him. The roar that erupted from Yi Futian's body of the Great Path became more fervent and violent. The broadsword will descended on his body but was unable to crush his will. There was a faint imperial divine glory shining upon him so that he appeared even more impressive. He had inherited the power of several great emperors. Among them, Xinjiao the Great Emperor and Ziwei the Great were both extraordinary great emperor cultivators. Xinjiao the Great Emperor had dared to challenge the heavens, while Ziwei the Great commanded several great emperors under him. Having inherited the incomparable powers of these two, Yi Futian had constructed an indestructible physical body and spiritual will. In short, he was not that easily shaken. Furthermore, as he felt that potent broadsword will, his body boomed. And an equally intimidating spirit manifested upon him as well. The starlight flowed upon his body, which seemed to transform into a starry sky world. At this moment, his physical body underwent another transformation. He became something like a divine body of the starry sky. Moreover, there was a terrifying howl of an ape that shook heaven and earth. Suddenly, strong coercion emerged as a massive war ape appeared behind Yi Futian. Boom! The war ape trampled above everything, and suddenly, the sky roared. The vast space seemed to solidify. This war ape, like a battle beast from the starry sky, was the starry war ape. An unusual vision appeared in the world behind Yi Futian. This sight before them made many cultivators tremble inside. What ability could cause such a vision to appear? Previously, they had not seen Yi Futian using it. The cultivators from Four Corner Village squinted their eyes as their hearts quivered. They had not anticipated Yi Futian to have cultivated this divine method to this degree. The Starry War Song, one of the 7 divine methods of Four Corner Village, could summon the Starry War Ape, whose presence was incredibly wild and menacing. Its attack power was unparalleled. This particular ability was controlled by Shirkui in Four Corner Village. At the same time, when Yi Futian unlocked the mysteries of Four Corner Village, he had also cultivated various secret methods. This was something known by all the cultivators from the village. Now, it seemed that Yi Futian was using another divine method from the Four Corner Village to fight against the disciple of the Devil Emperor. At this moment, Xiao Mu raised the blade with both hands, and the demonic light circulated upon the demonic blade, forming a frightening sight. In this field, many illusions of the demon god seemed to raise their blades simultaneously, ready to strike. Even before the strike was unleashed, its power was already shocking. It was as if it could shatter this corner of the sky, and no one was capable of stopping it. Cultivators from the devil world below wore a solemn expression as their eyes fastened on Xiao Mu, who was in the void. Even though Xiao Mu's super-destructive heavenly demon form was physically defeated by Yi Futian, now boosted by the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon, what kind of earth-shattering destructive power would be discharged by this combination? They were expectant as well. It seemed that Xiao Mu had never treated an opponent so seriously. Yi Futian had really angered Xiao Mu. And that had pushed Xiao Mu into his strongest state yet, gathering all his strength to battle with Yi Futian. Xiao Mu took a step forward, and a majestic and massive figure of the demon god appeared above the firmament. It stood there, containing the most supreme majestic spirit to crush down on this space. In this area, under the figure of that demon god, everything was null, and all beings were inconsequential. 9 slashes of the heavenly demon contained 9 styles of strike, and each strike morphed to increase in strength. When the 9 strikes were released, even the heavenly demon would be cut down, hence the name. Xiao Mu's hands slammed down. Even with cultivation as great as his, he needed to exert an incredible amount of strength to unleash this sword strike, as if on the verge of exhausting all of his energy to release it. Just this first strike alone seemed to have hollowed out his strength and spiritual energy. But at the same time, Only when he smashed down with the blade did the cultivators around them realize what was happening. A pitch-black fissure appeared between heaven and earth, and everything was split open and pulverized. At the same time, the illusions of the demon god and their surrounding also mimicked their movements and struck. In this area of the great path, a series of blasting light of the blades cut through the void, destroying everything in their path. Even those major figureheads felt their hearts tremble when this strike was unleashed. It was simply too powerful. Just the first strike contained such horrific prowess. This was the true blade technique. Compared with the demonic blade in front of them, it seemed that what they had known before to be blade techniques couldn't be considered technique at all. Terrifying rumbling sounds were heard, and the vision of the great path around Futian was becoming more radiant as a starry world surrounded by countless stars was formed. When the blade light came down, the starry war ape howled into the heavens, and those surrounding stars created an unparalleled defensive force, blocking the invading broadsword will and those countless sword shadows. At the same time, a rod appeared in Futian's hand, as if it had been transformed by the stars. It was heavy, full of boundless and overbearing energy. When the blade slashed toward him, the rod blasted forth. These two terrifying forces met and collided in midair. The destructive demonic blade slashed through the shadow of the rod that had shattered the space. The power that erupted from the contact began to tear through the surrounding space. The great path was shattered into pieces, and cracks appeared where the attacks had occurred. Xiao Mu's combination was the super-destructive heavenly demon form aided by the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon. However, Futian's divine body of the great path worked in sync with the starry war song from Four Corner Village and the power of the starry great path. The ultimate power exuded from this combination was unimaginably frightening. The storm of destruction still raged between the two. Xiao Mu's eyes were pitch black and impenetrable. His arm retracted as the blade returned between his hands, raised high above. Dark divine light of thunder fell and circulated upon the blade. An even more powerful demonic light rushed into the sky, and Xiao Mu unleashed the second strike without any hesitation. Each strike from the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon was stronger than the previous strike. Even Ren Huang at the peak couldn't survive just a couple of these slashes. Chapter 23:15 The Air. Xiao Mu unleashed the second strike, and it was like an angry roar from the demon god. The blade opened up the sky, carving out a series of horrific destructive fissures. Futian raised his head and saw a gigantic and boundless demonic blade slashing towards him, like a strike from the demon god himself. Boom! Surrounded by starlight, heaven and earth seemed to solidify. The starry power was everywhere, so the space felt tremendously heavy. The starry war ape roared madly as Futian picked up a long rod and smashed it down. This shocking blow wanted to shatter the sky but collided with the demonic blade that blasted at him instead. The collision resulted in an eruption of terrible divine light that was hard for anyone to behold. There was a loud rumbling noise, and the surrounding great path seemed to be exploding in a most horrific manner. Nonetheless, this strike had been blocked and could not obliterate Futian or get anywhere near him. This blow, at best, was barely adequate. It seemed that even the 9 slashes of heavenly demon couldn't crush Futian's attack, and these two had met their match in each other. The hearts of the cultivators below palpitated, especially those top figures from the devil world. Xiao Mu unleashed the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon with all his might. Its power had already come close to threaten even peak-level Ren Huang. However, the second strike of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon did not seem to pose a real threat to Futian because it had been successfully blocked by him. The starry war ape, as well as the power of the stars, and his body in the great path, were all extremely awesome. Multiple powers now blended into one, perfectly erupting from the center that was Futian. The power that erupted was no lesser than Xiao Mu's 9 slashes of the heavenly demon. It seemed that to defeat Futian, the second strike from the 9 slashes was far from sufficient. The force of the second blow hadn't completely dissipated before Xiao Mu took another step forward. There were terrible fissures in the surrounding space as the great path seemed to be torn and destroyed. Another wave of broadsword were gathered once again, as if overlapping and reinforcing blade momentum from before. It was getting stronger. A terrifying coercion blasted down as the sky howled. The great path roared as those demon gods appeared, like some heavenly demons. Another strike appeared, blooming with a world-destroying demonic light, overlapping again with the blade momentum from before. They seemed to land on the same track and smash down in the same trajectory. But it was heavier, stronger, and more uncompromising. The third strike of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon was already the most exquisite of the first 3 strikes and also the strongest. This offensive technique was a mass slaughtering technique created by the Devil Emperor when he was besieged and suppressed by numerous demon emperors when he was unifying the Devil world. The 9 slashes of the heavenly demon had beheaded countless demon emperors, terrorized the Devil world until it was flattened by him. Before he proclaimed his reign, he had always been hailed as one of the terrifying existences in the history of the Devil world. He was the first enchanting genius since the collapse of the heavenly path, whose name was known throughout the past and the present. After his proclamation as the emperor, many thought that the Devil Emperor was no lesser than the legendary Devil Emperors of ancient times. He wanted to become the first person in the history of the Devil world to unify the Devil world itself, and unify the outside world. The blade technique created by the Devil Emperor was intimidating, to say the least. It was said that when the Devil Emperor deployed the 8th strike, it was almost near invincible, and no one could stop his blade. The staff technique converged again, blasting toward that 3rd strike. However, this time it was not as before, as the staff shadow was shattered. Even though it was able to block that scary strike, it's the first time Futian's staff technique was suppressed. He was repelled back a few steps. It was not that his own strength was any lesser than that of Xiao Mu, but that the attacking technique he deployed was not on par with the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon. After all, this was the ultimate slaughtering technique created by the Devil Emperor. The cultivators from the Devil world were a little relieved when they beheld this sight. Although Futian was very powerful, the opponent he was facing was Xiao Mu. No matter how strong he was, how could he possibly compete with the Devil Emperor's direct disciple, especially when this disciple's realm was higher than his? Futian's inheritance was, after all, from the great emperors of yore, and the Devil Emperor was a great emperor who existed in the world right now. However, if Futian and Xiao Mu were in the same realm, Xiao Mu would probably lose this battle in the end. If he had to battle with such difficulties in a situation where his realm was higher, it only served to accentuate Futian's natural talent and the strength of his combat effectiveness. As the first genius talent of the original realm, this young king of the original realm, indeed, did not disappoint. His prestige was not in name only. Otherwise, with so many top figures hanging around, how could he become the king of the original realm? Xiao Mu looked relieved when he saw that Futian was repelled by the 3rd strike. His dark eyes glanced at Futian. He thought that he had finally backed down. Futian had shown signs of defeat with that 3rd strike, but it wasn't enough. He wanted to destroy Futian, and this was just the 3rd strike. After the blade smashed down, its momentum did not disappear. On the contrary, it became stronger. There seemed to be a resonance in this area of heavenly demon. Those demon gods seemed to mimic the same actions as Xiao Mu, raising their blades. In the vast and boundless space, many demon gods raised their blades at the same time, and these forces resonated with one another. Before the blade was released, a terrible slaughtering and destructive power had already swept toward Futian, with the potential to destroy everything. Futian had retreated at the 3rd strike, so the next 2 strikes should end the battle. Xiao Mu thought the 4th strike was gathering momentum, and the storm was getting more terrifying, raging in this space. The storm was capable of slaughtering ordinary Renhuang as it contained incredible power of ruination. Futian sensed this power, and there was a divine light flashing through his eyes, and it seemed to become heavier still. The roar in his body became more violent and fierce, however. Characters flew out as his body morphed with the way. It became something far more terrifying. At the same time, there was a divine light shining at his brow chakra, akin to imperial glory. He looked even more dazzling, like some heavenly deity. The stars in the sky centered around Futian with just one thought, and the starry glory surrounded him. A phantom of Futian seemed to appear on every star, and at the moment, Futian seemed to be everywhere, becoming one with this starry sky. When the terrifying demonic blade came in for the kill, it collided with the starry field and was blocked by the light screen. It failed to come close to Futian. With his body as the center, the stars had formed an absolute field of power, and this area of the great path was inching toward the other, on the prowl to invade. Futian's body floated in the center of this starry world, surrounded by countless starry divine lights that showered upon him. The cultivators below watched Futian, their hearts beating wildly. Whether it was cultivators from the Devil World or the Heavenly Mandate Academy, the hearts of those cultivators palpitated. The cultivators from Ziwei, especially, were more electrified now than ever. Futian was like the true heir of Ziwei the Great. Chapter 23:16 Victory and Defeat. The changes to Futian similarly caused the hearts of the cultivators of the Devil World to tremble. Before this, when they saw Futian being pushed back, they had believed the battle to be over. However, it seemed that they were too optimistic. This battle was just beginning. Xiao Mu grew stronger and stronger. Futian also rose to the occasion. He kept unleashing new abilities. He had not been going all out at all since the start of the battle. This made the top figures of the Devil World feel somewhat surreal. A 7th-tier cultivator actually dared not go all out when facing an 8th-tier direct disciple of the Devil Emperor. How confident was Futian in his own abilities? An instant change appeared in Xiao Mu's demonic eyes. Yet, the more powerful Futian grew, the more it seemed to stir up Xiao Mu's fighting spirit. His battle spirit was ablaze right now. A storm swept out, and the silhouettes of the demons in the sky moved, resonating with him. Lifting the blade with both his hands, all the power of the great path in Xiao Mu's body surged into the demonic blade. It caused demonic light from the blade to pierce the heavens. Terrifying clouds covered the skies. The scene before the crowd was astonishing. On the other side, with Futian's figure as the center, divine starlight shone extremely brightly. His body radiated with imperial glory. Bathed in the divine light, Futian was like a true god. Stars circled around him. His shadow was on each of the stars, as though he controlled all of them. Buzz! Xiao Mu slashed down for the 4th time. With this slash, the various demons in the sky also slashed down with their demonic blades at the same time. Frightening cracks appeared in the sky, ripping apart all of existence. Against these demonic blades, no one could survive. Boom! 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 The demonic blades met with resistance this time. They cleaved down on the stars that filled the sky. The stars that circled around Futian's figure formed a light shroud of stars. The blade will of the demons were all blocked off by these stars. Only the domineering blade in the middle, which was the one of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon unleashed by Xiao Mu, cleaved the light shroud apart. At the same time, it shattered a star before it. It was as though no defensive power could withstand this blade. However, the people down below could all sense that the might of this blade had already been weakened. It would most likely be difficult for Xiao Mu to end Futian with this slash. As expected, when the astonishing blade slashed down, countless runes appeared around Futian's body and formed an absolute domain of stars. The blade will flashed, but it could not break through the defense of the stars. Cracks appeared on the stars. Then, the momentum of the blade was halted, and it could not advance any further. As the cultivators beneath the sky watched, endless blade will landed on the stars. It caused cracks to form on the stars. However, the stars were not shattered, and they had successfully blocked this ferocious attack. Was this the defensive technique passed down through the teachings of Great Emperor Ziwei? Many people down below thought. Great Emperor Ziwei was one of the most famous great emperor figures in the ancient era. He was a marvel of his time. How powerful was he? Rumor has it that Great Emperor Ziwei could control the various stars in the sky. He was the ruler of a segmentum. Such an extraordinary figure must have certainly cultivated powerful techniques. However, the various cultivators had never seen them before. They had only caught a glimpse of such techniques from observing Huangqin during his battles. Now Yi Futian seemed to be unleashing the power of the teachings he inherited from great Emperor Ziwei. How powerful would this technique be? The defensive power of this technique was evident. The fourth blade was blocked. Xiao Mu initially thought that the previous 2 slashes were enough to end the battle. Unfortunately, he was wrong. By now, he had exhausted much of his strength. Each and every slash of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon took a huge toll on the user. It was already awe-inspiring for Xiao Mu to be able to unleash 4 slashes. Xiao Mu slashed down for the 5th time. His 5th slash was even more powerful than the 4th. The momentum was even more astonishing. The 5th slash caused cracks to form on many stars around Yi Futian. The defensive light shroud before Yi Futian shattered into pieces after being cleaved into half. Although Yi Futian still managed to block this 5th slash, the stars were on the verge of crumbling. It was as though they would be destroyed at any second. Xiao Mu didn't underestimate Yi Futian. From his perspective, if Yi Futian hadn't unleashed the power he inherited from great Emperor Ziwei, the 5th slash would have certainly ended the battle. This 5th blade was absolutely domineering, yet it was still not enough to defeat Yi Futian. Right now, Xiao Mu felt too exhausted to press on. He took a step forward. He was akin to a demon as his gaze locked on Yi Futian. Xiao Mu proclaimed, "This next slash should end the battle." He couldn't afford to drag the battle any longer. It cost a huge amount of damage to himself as he unleashed each slash of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon. While the slashes were very formidable, they also consumed much of the strength of the user. Xiao Mu needed to maintain both his flesh and mind at their peak state to truly unleash the might of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon. Otherwise, his attack would have the form but not the essence of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon. It would not retain its might too. Boom! A terrifying demonic aura enveloped Xiao Mu. The cultivators from the devil world narrowed their eyes in shock. What was Xiao Mu planning to do? Was he going to send out a frenzy slash? Yi Futian stood still on his spot. He looked plainly at Xiao Mu. He was akin to an almighty god. There was absolute confidence shining in his eyes. He was more or less certain about Xiao Mu's level of ability. From the looks of it, the 6th slash would be Xiao Mu's limit. If Xiao Mu could slash down the 7th time, it was possible for him to defeat Yi Futian. If Xiao Mu could slash down the 8th time, Yi Futian would surely lose. Unfortunately, there was no what if. The 6th slash would be Xiao Mu's last slash. And Yi Futian was confident that he could block this 6th slash. It should be said that Yi Futian didn't intend to block it, instead, he would retaliate. Boom! Xiao Mu's body changed as he grew larger and larger. He merged with the demons in the sky and transformed into a demon himself. He wielded the blade with both his hands. When his blade will burst forth, terrifying fissures formed in the space. At this moment, Yi Futian felt threatened. He finally moved. An illusory figure appeared above Yi Futian's body. The illusory figure seemed to be Yi Futian himself. It was surrounded by divine light and abnormal phenomena. Yi Futian transformed into a deity and became one with the stars. Endless divine light of the stars shone on him. With his body as the center of the stars, an intimidating power gushed forth. Dazzling divine halos shone brightly. A sword appeared in front of Yi Futian. The celestial force all around Yi Futian rushed into the sword, causing it to keep expanding. It grew larger and transformed into a true starry divine sword. Xiao Mu slashed down. The 6th slash of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon caused the sky to dim as it charged towards Yi Futian. It could even slaughter gods. At the same time, the stars around Yi Futian became one as endless starlight surged into the sword. Yi Futian raised his arm and thrust the sword forward. The divine sword and the demonic blade collided head-on. Rumble! It was as though the world was falling apart. Apart from the divine sword, many stars cracked and shattered into pieces. The stars took the place of the starry divine sword to bear the power of the demonic blade. On the other hand, the blade was also trembling violently. It was similarly enduring an unparalleled power. One by one, the stars cracked and disintegrated. However, the divine light on the starry divine sword shone more and more brilliantly. It suppressed everything that was in its way, causing cracks to start forming on the demonic blade too. Bang! As cracks began to appear on the demonic blade, Xiao Mu let out a dull groan. His face was pale. He had unleashed 6 slashes out of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon. Yet, it was still insufficient to defeat Yi Futian. The blade and the sword were both destroyed. One after the other, they broke into pieces. Yi Futian looked at Xiao Mu and said, "If you could unleash the 7th slash today, the loser would be me." He stood still, and his tone was calm. It was as though the victor of the battle had been determined. This exchange between the two had indeed determined the victor. At least, that was what Yi Futian surmised. As for whether or not this fight would continue, it depended on Xiao Mu. If they continued fighting, the result would not change as long as Xiao Mu didn't unleash the 7th slash. Xiao Mu stood in midair quietly. His demonic will was not as rampant as before. He looked at Yi Futian and didn't refute his words. It was as though he silently agreed to what Yi Futian had said. Not defeating Yi Futian with the 6th slash meant that Xiao Mu had lost the fight. Xiao Mu was not able to slash down for the 7th time. If he could unleash the 7th slash, the loser would surely be Yi Futian. Even Yi Futian admitted this. Chapter 23:17 Secret of the Devil World. The outcome of their battle was decided. Down below, the cultivators of the Devil World were quite restless when they saw this scene before them. Xiao Mu had actually been defeated. Even the 6th slash of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon still could not take down Yi Futian. It had been blocked. After the power that Yi Futian inherited from Xinjiao the Great Emperor and Great Emperor Ziwei burst forth, even the 8th tier Xiao Mu could not touch him at all. After this slash, Xiao Mu was already worn out. Unleashing the 6th slash of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon had already drained all his strength. He had reached his peak condition right before that moment. However, after the slash, he had now slumped into a phase of weakness. Moreover, his demonic blade was shattered by Yi Futian. Yet Yi Futian was not affected much. Right now, he was still in peak condition. His entire body was shining brightly. Brilliant divine halos radiated from his body. It was unparalleled. It looked as though he could unleash his previous attack once more at any moment. Hence, both of them knew the outcome of this battle. There was no need to continue fighting. Xiao Mu admitted his defeat. This young ruler of the Heavenly Mandate realm was actually this strong. The various cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy secretly heaved sighs of relief. They were also moved. Yi Futian had surpassed the boundary of planes and defeated Xiao Mu, a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor. It would be hard to find someone on the same plane as Yi Futian who could contend with him in various worlds. Even if there were such figures, there would not be many of them. They would truly be rare specimens and would be monstrous figures who stood at the pinnacle of their worlds. They were looking forward to Yi Futian's growth even more. When he reached the peak of the Renhuang Plain and experienced the divine tribulation of the Great Path, how glorious would that day be! The ruler of the original realm would truly be able to shock the cultivators of various worlds. No one would dare trespass in the original realm. Yi Futian would become the absolute leader of the original realm. In a tavern in the distance, Mei Ting raised a cup of wine and drank from it. Before the battle began, even he did not know who would emerge as the victor. He was also very interested in this battle. Now that it had ended, he seemed to have a better understanding of Yi Futian's combat ability. After all, for Mei Ting, Xiao Mu was a good opponent for Yi Futian and could check on Yi Futian's ability. Did that person train Yi Futian to this level? It should have been impossible. That person did not have the time to do so. From what Mei Ting learned from Yu Xing and the abilities that Yi Futian displayed, their abilities were not related to that person at all. Even for Yu Xing, that person had merely passed on a set of demonic arts for Yu Xing to train himself. So, Yi Futian's achievements were all related to the fateful encounters that he had. Aside from being lucky and having many opportunities for him to have come so far in his cultivation, it also meant that he was extraordinary, to begin with. He was very talented. His real identity was even more intriguing now. "Let's go," commanded Xiao Mu. Then, he flew up to the sky and left the Heavenly Mandate Academy. He was a little weak. Moreover, it was meaningless for him to hang around any longer now that he had lost. The top cultivators from the Devil World took a good look at Yi Futian. Then, one by one, they flew up to the sky. Traversing the clouds, they left the place along with Xiao Mu. Soon, the group disappeared of those on the ground. Only a tint of demonic aura was left lingering in the sky. The cultivators in the Heavenly Mandate Academy collectively heaved a sigh of relief after the demonic cultivators left. The latter emanated an imposing pressure on the rest of them. Even Ren Huangchen had his guard up the whole time while the demonic cultivators were around. If the group from the Devil World initiated an attack against them, it would put them in great danger. No one dared to act recklessly. After all, the incomers were cultivators from the Devil Imperial Palace. Fortunately, the source of the pressure had disappeared now. The demonic cultivators leaving meant that the crisis was over. Yi Futian looked in the direction where the demonic cultivators had disappeared to. He appeared calm and showed no sign of joy upon winning a battle. During the battle, he also sensed the immense pressure imposed by the direct disciple of the Devil Emperor. It was Yi Futian's first time encountering an opponent who could clash head-on with him just with his flesh. Furthermore, the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon posed a threat to him. What would happen to him if one of the direct disciples of the Devil Emperor mastered the 7th, or even the 8th slash? How could Yi Futian possibly defend himself against such a figure? How about the Devil Emperor himself? What kind of person was he? Ren Huangyi is indeed an unparalleled figure. Even an 8th-tier direct disciple of the Devil Emperor has lost to you, a cultivator from the Song Imperial City said to Yi Futian. The cultivator was very impressed by him. The wish of the cultivator to become acquainted with Yi Futian grew even stronger now. This battle had once again verified Yi Futian's talent. He was a bona fide exceptional figure able to defeat a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor. Most likely, very few people in the Divine Prefecture were comparable to Yi Futian now. I got lucky. If he mastered the 7th slash, I would most likely not have been able to withstand his attack. Yi Futian spoke humbly. Does Senior know anything about the Devil Emperor? What kind of person is he? The current Devil Emperor is a living legend in the Devil World. He became famous even before Dongwang the Great did. Before Dongwang the Great unified the Divine Prefecture, the Devil Emperor had already ended the era of various demons fighting over the Devil World. He unified the entire Devil World. People claimed that no one, past or future, could compare to him. Not only would he inherit the glory of the Devil Emperors of the ancient era, he even wanted to bring it to new heights. Bring it to new heights? Asked Yi Futian as his heart trembled. Said the cultivator from the Song Imperial City as he nodded his head. I heard that he previously tried to do so. Yi Futian's heart was racing. After unifying the Devil World, the Devil Emperor wanted to bring it to new heights. Yi Futian naturally understood what that meant. The Devil Emperor had wanted to conquer other worlds and claim them all for his own. He had even attempted to do so before. What had happened back then? Did the Devil Emperor have incredible figures beside him who were very close to him? Asked Yi Futian. The cultivator from the Song Imperial City had a pensive look. He softly said, I have heard of a secret, though I do not know whether or not it is true. This matter seems to be unknown to many. Even among the top forces, it is but a rumor that goes around. It is impossible to verify its legitimacy. What secret? Asked Yi Futian. The cultivator from the Song Imperial City continued. There were previously 2 prominent figures in the Devil World. It was not just the Devil Emperor alone. He had a brother. However, later on, this brother of his would disappear without a trace. Rumors claimed that he had betrayed the Devil Emperor. Others claimed that he had died at the hands of the Devil Emperor. There could only be one ruler of the Devil World. This caused Yi Futian's heart to beat even faster. He could faintly sense that he was approaching the truth soon. It was just that even the top figures of the Song Imperial City knew very little about it. They had only rumors to go by, and they could not even verify the legitimacy of the information. The brother of the Devil Emperor? Then, what was Yuxing's status? If what the other party claimed was true, then the brother of the Devil Emperor clearly had not died and had always been by Yuxing's side. He became a lonely, frail old man. No one knew his status and who he was. However, why would such a terrifying figure claim to be a slave? Futian could not wrap his head around this. What was the story behind all this? This information itself might be incorrect, and that person was not the brother of the Devil Emperor. The cultivator from the Song Imperial City was somewhat curious. Why was Futian inquiring about those close to the Devil Emperor? On that same note, why had the direct disciple of the Devil Emperor immediately come looking for Futian after arriving in the original realm? Mei Ting, a devil general of the Devil World, seemed to be exceptionally interested in Futian. Could it be that there were some secrets behind all this? However, the cultivator from the Song Imperial City did not inquire further about this. Each person had their own secrets. As long as they were unrelated to him, there was no need to pry. He had come to befriend Futian, so he would not do anything to offend him. Prying into the secrets of others was undoubtedly one of the most offensive acts possible. Since there were secrets involved, it was naturally better for fewer people to know about it. Nobody wished to expose everything about themselves in front of others. If Ren Huangyi has other questions, feel free to ask me, the cultivator from the Song Imperial City said with a smile. I have cultivated for quite a long time in the Divine Prefecture. Even though I don't claim to know much, I have heard of many things before. He appeared exceptionally sincere in his speech. Futian had just defeated a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor. The battle was significant, indicating that Futian would attain even higher achievements in the future. He would certainly be able to experience a divine tribulation of the Great Path. The sky was his limit. Futian naturally sensed the goodwill of the other party. The way the cultivators of the Song Imperial City treated him now was completely different from before. This change happened because of his current status and improvement in abilities. In the past, Song Imperial City wanted to take him under their wing to control him. Now, they wanted to befriend him. Nevertheless, Futian didn't inquire further about the matters of the Devil World. It would be too obvious if he continued asking about them. Cultivators from all around the world have gathered here. Since the cultivators from the Devil World have arrived, most likely cultivators from the other realms will also be here, right? Futian asked. I am not sure about the cultivators from the world of Buddhism, but I think they will be here too. I'm also not so certain about what's happening in the heaven realm currently. As for the human realm, most likely some cultivators will come over, replied the cultivator from the Song Imperial City. It goes without saying for the cultivators from the Dark World and the empty Divine Realm. Futian nodded his head. This time, the storm in the original realm was growing more and more intense. The cultivators of the Divine Prefecture were not the only ones who caught wind of it. Top forces arrived in the original realm consecutively. Aside from that, before this, the empty Divine Realm and the Dark World had constantly sent more cultivators here. Now, the cultivators of the Devil World appeared, and a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor had descended upon the original realm. Hence, Futian was speculating whether or not the cultivators from the other worlds would also come. He did not know what had happened in the battle back then. The Dark World, the Divine Prefecture, and the empty Divine Realm experienced their most direct conflict ever. The world of Buddhism had good relations with the Donghuang Imperial Palace in the Divine Prefecture. After all, Donghuang the Great had previously ventured to the world of Buddhism to seek the path. Futian knew more about the world of Buddhism because of his relationship with Yuxing. From the looks of it, the Devil World was not close with any other world. However, they also did not bear any obvious animosity towards any world. At least, that was what Futian perceived at the moment. He had previously encountered a mysterious cultivator in the heaven realm. As for the human realm, he had never come in contact with it up until now. Now, would the cultivators of the human realm also come to the original realm? Does Senior know much about the human realm? Futian asked. The cultivator from the Song Imperial City replied, I know little about it. I learned about it mainly from the ancient scriptures. Some elders mentioned something before. Rumor has it that after the collapse of the heavenly path, the main world formed was the human realm. From there, division occurred, and after countless years, things are what we see today. I heard that the human ancestor of the human realm is quite close with Dongwang the Great. The former has lent his aid to the latter before. The human ancestor has lived for eons. He is kind and is adored by many people. It is said that even Dongwang the Great looks highly on him. As for whether or not the few legendary top figures have good relationships among themselves, that's not something I can possibly know. Futian nodded. Those figures were people on another level. They were at the true pinnacle. They were supreme rulers of the world. The people down below could only speculate about their relationships based on what they observed. Only the legendary figures knew exactly how things were among themselves. However, based on the bits and pieces collected, Futian could roughly tell that Dongwang the Great was truly an imposing hero. 300 or 400 years after he had made his name known, he was already on par with those great emperors who had been dominant for centuries. Besides that, Dongwang the Great seemed to have good relationships with the world of Buddhism and the human realm. Back then, why did Dongwang the Great go against Emperor Yiqing? Are there truly only 7 great emperors in existence? Futian continued asking. Now that he had reached his current cultivation plane, he had the desire to know more about these things that were unknown to him. He wanted to know the truth of this world and its secrets. The cultivator from the Song Imperial City clearly knew more than he did. The cultivator from the Song Imperial City revealed a meaningful smile. He looked at Futian and said, "If there were only 7 great emperors, then, does great Emperor Ziwei, who Huang Yi met before, count as one of them? If not, what about Shinin the Great?" When Futian heard his words, he revealed a pensive look. He pondered on the meaning of these words. The other party smiled and continued saying, "The world is too big. After having lived during the age of gods and reached the great emperor plane, the great emperors can create so many miracles. Even if they have truly fallen, they will still leave behind remnants of themselves. Who knows? In some remote corner of the world, there might still be a great emperor who is alive." Futian nodded his head. The existence of Xinjiao the Great Emperor Ziwei, and Shinin the Great also made him feel that way. There were too many mysteries and secrets in the world. Right now, he still could not comprehend all of it. The ancient god clan is a clan that claims to bear the inheritance of a deity. Is the Song Imperial City considered a force of the ancient god clan? Asked Futian. The other parties shook their heads and said, "The Song Imperial City used to have a great emperor. However, nowadays, we no longer bear the inheritance of a great emperor. Hence, we are not considered part of the ancient god clan. In the true sense, the forces which are part of the ancient god clan are like Ziwei Imperial Palace of Great Emperor Ziwei. He left behind his teachings to them. Only then are they considered part of the ancient god clan." This is actually similar to the previous topic. The forces of the ancient god clan are considered fortunate. The teachings of the great emperors were left behind and were passed down to this day. Sadly, most of the great emperors ended up like Shinin the Great, and were gradually forgotten to history. Understood, responded Futian. If that was the case, the ancient god clan contained the inheritance of the great emperors in the true sense. They could actually be considered the descendants of these great emperors. If an extraordinary figure appeared among them, they would also have the opportunity to prove their path to the highest level. However, after so many years, the divine prefecture had only given birth to 2 great emperors, Dongwang the Great and Emperor Yiqing. This was highly likely due to the situation in the current world. There was also a high chance that Dongwang the Great and Emperor Yiqing had experienced some extraordinary fateful encounters. "Senior, thank you for your explanation," said Futian. "What I said cannot be considered an explanation. I merely shared some unimportant details. Even if I didn't tell you now, Renhuan you would learn in the future. My words are not worthy of your thanks," replied the other party. "Renhuan Yi controls the original realm now. Perhaps, many years later, the original realm will be a new world. Clearly, The elder was hinting at something else. The new world he mentioned alluded to an independent world. Chapter 23:19 Relic of the Cultivators. Although the original realm was an independent interface, it was still part of Divine Prefecture. It had been under the rule of Dongwang the Great since that battle long ago. If Yi Futian wanted to obtain control over the original realm, it meant that he most definitely need to step into the Imperial realm. Clearly, this was the cultivator from Song Imperial City flattering him. After that, the cultivator from Song Imperial City left as well and did not linger on much. His goal was to befriend the Heavenly Mandate Academy, but it was still premature to form an alliance. Yi Futian had also made his stance very clear in regards to the alliance. It was necessary for those interested in this alliance to follow him in declaring war on the Dark World. This was a precarious business. What's more, even though the cultivator from Song Imperial City was optimistic about Yi Futian's future and heaped praises upon him, these were just superficial gestures. He knew very well that Yi Futian's position was, in fact, very unstable. Now that the original realm had attracted the attention of all the realms, the Devil World and other forces had descended close behind each other, which meant that the original realm had become the center of an impending storm. Yi Futian and the Heavenly Mandate Academy were the center of the original realm. They were the ones in charge of it, and everyone knew what that meant. If he wanted to climb towards imperial eminence, it would be a difficult journey fraught with many life and death situations. It sufficed to say there would be many narrow escapes on this journey. The fact was that Yi Futian was not some exception. Out of all those many splendid talents, who wanted to be on the road to becoming another great emperor, how many of them actually succeeded? After the collapse of the Heavenly Path, the Great Path suffered considerable damage, and the road to becoming the great emperor was blocked. Many had perished on this already thorny journey. How many among them had really reached their goal? Yi Futian had endless potential, but there were also innumerable dangers. Yi Futian himself didn't dwell so much on these thoughts. He understood some of these things, but it didn't do any good to think obsessively about them. The only way ahead was forward. Today's conversation with the cultivator from Song Imperial City revealed some things about the top figures and the top principalities of this world. There were the Divine Prefecture from the East, the Western Heavenly World, the Ancient Heaven Realm, the Empty Divine Realm, the Devil World, the Dark World, and the Human Realm, which was the center of the world at the time when the Heavenly Path collapsed. The rulers of these 7 worlds, especially the ancient god clan from ancient times, represented the pinnacle of the cultivation world. They were the only ones who had the privilege to speak for the entire world. They were the existence that decided the rules of the world. And the domain chiefs' manners of all 18 domains and those top principalities were just secondary players. They were merely managing the world for them. He now had control over the Heavenly Mandate Academy and Ziwei Imperial Palace, but he still had a long way to go. If the teacher hadn't scared off those men, there were still many principalities in this world who could have destroyed the Heavenly Mandate Academy. Just one existence had survived the second divine tribulation. It would be tough enough for them to overcome, no matter how rare the existence was at this level. The Divine Prefecture was not without them, and whatever the Divine Prefecture had, it only stood to reason that other worlds must have some of them as well. Furthermore, he had mentioned those unknown existences in his conversation with the other. Who knows? Perhaps, the cultivator from Song Imperial City had something that he didn't yet make fully known to Yi Futian. After all, it did have involvements at a higher level, so the other man might be more cautious in what to reveal. The road ahead of him was long. It seemed that he had to cultivate to the top of Renhuang before he could have some credibility. At that time, with the help of the physical body of Xinjiao the Great Emperor, he may be able to explode with extraordinary power. But for the moment, he was limited to defeating existences of the first level of the Great Path Divine Realm and subjected to considerable backlash if he leveraged the physical body of Xinjiao the Great Emperor. He had no idea how many years it would take him to set foot on the peak of Renhuang. After the Devil World and Song Imperial City cultivators left, Heavenly Mandate Academy returned to normal, and Yi Futian continued to cultivate quietly while paying close attention to the changes in the outside world. Every few days, someone would arrive to report the latest from the outside world, and every time there were new movements in the original realm. For example, somebody had excavated and discovered the relics of the great emperor, and that some principalities had even obtained the relics of the great emperor. When Futian heard about this, though he was enticed, he did not intend to fight for them. He had already reaped a lot from before, and that alone was enough for the others to look at him sideways. If he wanted to take all of the inheritances, he would only put himself in harm's way and become a target of public outrage. On the contrary, if each of the top forces took some of these relics from the great emperor, he would attract far less attention, sticking out like a sore thumb. On this day, Futian, Lord Taishian, Emperor Nan, and the others were gathered together. In the courtyard, Futian presided over their meeting. Although he was younger, he was now the college chief of Heavenly Mandate Academy, the ruler of all of the original realm. So even the elders had to defer to him. Everyone was working toward the same objective, assisting Futian to reach the pinnacle of the cultivation world. Because of this objective, these top figures were able to move forward as a team. Although their ultimate goals and beliefs were different, at the moment, they adhered to the same objective. Futian was the one they had chosen from a long time ago, and they were now more certain than ever. In addition to the cultivators from the devil world, the cultivators from the human realm have also appeared. Today, only the cultivators from heaven realm and the world of Buddhism from the west have yet to make their appearances. But the heaven realm was known to be secretive, so perhaps they have already arrived without us knowing. Emperor Nan continued. After the devil world, the cultivators from the human realm had also descended in the original realm. All the worlds had gradually made their way to the land of the original realm. What kind of storm would be waiting for them? Are there many cultivators from the human realm? Futian questioned. Not much for the time being, but there must be more that we don't know about. Now, the news had spread to the original realm. The cultivation world in the original realm is about to boil over. The situation today is comparable to the one in the past, said Emperor Nan. Actually, because of the changes currently taking place in the original realm, the situation at hand has far exceeded the one in the past. Back then, not many cultivators came to the original realm. The two just couldn't be compared. Emperor Nan, however, was a cultivator who had experienced that turbulence 300 or 403 or 400 years ago. The rumor has it that the human realm was once the center of all the worlds after the collapse of the heavenly path and the place of blessings for human cultivators. The supreme great emperor of the human realm is called the human ancestor, whose name speaks volumes of his importance. All the cultivators who came from the human realm this time were said to possess the aura of the human ancestor, an abundance of righteousness. Emperor Nan continued. I also heard that the human realm claimed to be the most orthodox of the cultivation world. Futian nodded. He also wanted to take a look at all the cultivators from all the worlds. The human realm was the center of the world, formed after the collapse of the heavenly path. He was curious how the cultivation world there would compare to the one at Divine Prefecture. How would their cultivators compare to the one from Divine Prefecture? In addition to the arrival of cultivators from all major worlds, many amazing relics have also appeared. And now, evidence of human cultivators has appeared in one of the most important sites, said Emperor Nan. Futian's eyes sharpened slightly. Same as the Ziwei segmentum? Exactly. Emperor Nan nodded. The same world as Ziwei segmentum had appeared. What could all this mean? Chapter 2320, Shini Continent. Ziwei segmentum was a world long sealed by Ziwei the Great. So, what kind of world would it be with human cultivators? At present, most of the cultivators and top principalities from various worlds are attracted by this continental relic that has just appeared. Not to mention, a world with human cultivators resembles a complete world, which entices a stronger desire to explore it. And according to the news, the cultivators in this world are most extraordinary. Emperor Nan continued. Next to him, Rahuangchen asked Futian, Shall we go check it out? Futian pondered for a moment, then agreed. We might as well. Previously there were many relics in the original realm, and he had never had the desire to go, wanting to give other people their opportunities. However, He was curious to see this other continent that had appeared in the original realm. "Then let's go straight away," said Renhuangchen. "Please lead the way, Elder." Yi Futian nodded, and the group immediately set off on their journey. They leaped into the sky and left the Heavenly Mandate Academy, heading towards the boundless void. The land of the original realm was the void world that was formed after the collapse of the Heavenly Path. The 3,000 realms of the Great Path was the area of human cultivation. This area was not considered large, but beyond the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, there was nothing but an endless void, full of unknowns. For example, Ziwei Segmentum was now visible in the boundless void, and so were all those major relics that had made their appearances one after the other. Yi Futian didn't know the actual size of the original realm, and no one else really knew anything about the original realm either. Perhaps only Dongwang the Great and other great emperors knew some of its history. At this time, a new continent was floating in the endless void of the original realm. This continent was lying in the void, a faint brilliance emanating from within. It was as if it had existed here since the beginning of time, and that it was a part of this vast space. Yi Futian and the others passed through the edges of the continent, and continued moving upward. They saw that there were cultivators on the edge of the continent at this time, but they seemed to be quite accustomed to everything that was happening in front of them, as they did not act surprised. "How did this continent come about?" Yi Futian asked when he beheld the sight in front of him. "The news we heard was that this continent has been traveling through the endless void, having been exiled for a countless number of years, and has not made its appearance until now," Emperor Nan responded. Yi Futian looked lost in thoughts. If this were the case, then that would explain the reactions of those cultivators on the continent. A world that had been exiled in the endless emptiness would obviously get used to all of this, and may even felt what they saw now was pretty mundane. But who had the terrible ability to exile an entire continent? Yi Futian and the others continued forward towards the continent. The cultivators on the continent looked up at Yi Futian and the others as they passed, but then bowed their heads and went back to their own businesses. Similar occurrences had been happening recently, as cultivators from the outside came to their continent, so they had grown accustomed to it. "The cultivation of these people is awesome," Yi Futian whispered as he walked forward. The cultivators on this continent felt extraordinary to him. Even those on the fringe of the continent were not at a low level. The lowest cultivation turned out to be the Saint Plain. "If it's a continent that has gone through tribulations, then it must be an extraordinary continent," Renhuangchen whispered. Everyone nodded in agreement. If this continent had really been exiled in the endless void, and if it was able to survive until this day, then neither the continent itself nor the cultivators on it would be ordinary. Otherwise, it would have already been annihilated in its long history. The group meandered forward aimlessly. Although this continent was newly discovered with cultivators, it was different from Ziwei Segmentum, which was a field of stars. Here, it was merely a continent. Looking from another angle, the continent might have just been a place for the most powerful figures in ancient times. Of course, even for Top Renhuang, this continent was still massive, at least for someone in Yi Futian's realm. They continued to travel through the continent, but still didn't seem to have reached the central area. Yi Futian and the others looked at everything on the continent below. It didn't seem too different from Divine Prefecture and the 3,000 realms of the Great Path, as far as cities, mountains, jungles, and cultivators were concerned, except that the aura of these cultivators on this continent was somewhat different. Generally speaking, their realm seemed to be a little higher. "Shall we go down and make some inquiries?" Renhuangchen asked Yi Futian. "Very well." Yi Futian understood his meaning and agreed. Instantly, Renhuangchen moved, and in a flash was aiming towards the sky below. Not long after, Renhuangchen returned and said, "Same as the rumors. This continent is known as Shi Continent by the cultivators who resided upon it. According to them, it is a continent abandoned by the gods in ancient times. It has been floating in the void world for many years, constantly moving, and now appears in the original realm. As to the reason, they are as clueless as anyone. If we want the truth, we could go to Shi City, which is the center of this continent and also where the strongest cultivators are." Yi Futian nodded. So this was Shi Continent? Even the cultivators on the continent knew that they were being abandoned by the gods once upon a time. But judging from their present situation, could the abandonment have been, in fact, a form of protection? Because of the abandonment, the continent did not perish and was able to see the light of day. "Let's go," said Futian. "Do these cultivators on the continent, like the ones in Ziwei Segmentum, know the origins of their own continent?" I was also curious about that, so I did some research. According to them, generations upon generations of ancestors have been exploring the continent for many years, wanting to see other worlds of cultivation and cultivators. After reaching the peak level, they discovered that this continent has great limitations, and the world seemed far too small. However, for years immemorial, they have not discovered anything until now. They have ascertained that all the legends were true, they were abandoned and exiled by the gods, and now they have truly come into contact with the outside world. Huangchen explained. Futian appeared thoughtful. They were not the only ones who were curious about this continent. The cultivators on the continent, too, had never stopped their search for the outside world until they had come to the original realm and discovered the truth. Perhaps, they were just as curious about the original realm as anyone else. "So, the top forces from original realm should have already gone to Shini City already," Futian commented. Huangchen nodded. Then the group continued on its way in their mighty formation. Chapter 23-21, Midair Collision. Shini City, the main city of this continent. When Futian and the others arrived in Shini City, they felt an overpowering ancient aura. The architecture of this city was towering and ancient, full of solemnity, holding the aura of the Great Path. Its buildings were extremely sturdy, which was different from the structures found in the Divine Prefecture and the original realm. Perhaps this was because the continent had constantly been traveling through the storms in the void, so its buildings had to be incredibly sturdy to withstand the abuse of the weather, lest they should be destroyed by those incessant storms. After Futian and the others arrived in this main city, they felt many divine consciousnesses scanning them. They were all powerful. Shini City was now the gathering place of powerful cultivators from all sides. Besides top local cultivators, there were also cultivators from other major worlds. They were paying close attention to everything. The arrival of Futian and the others had clearly attracted some attention. Shini City was vast, but the distance that could be covered by the divine consciousness of those top figures was also quite considerable. For giant-level figures, their divine consciousness was sufficient to cover an entire city. Behind Futian, the divine consciousness of Huangchen and other cultivators spread out, surveilling the cultivators inside Shini City. Futian himself did the same. He stood high above the sky as he released his divine consciousness, and let it sweeping through this vast and endless area. He saw an area of note that had many cultivators gathering there. It seemed that many cultivators of the top forces from the original realm were crowding around that area. Furthermore, that extraordinary place piqued his curiosity as well. The aura emanated from there was incredibly terrifying. "Let's go," Futian said, and his group of people immediately moved towards that area. Everyone looked particularly serious. Obviously, Futian was not the only one who realized this. The others had also noticed the odd phenomenon there. It didn't take long before they came to the outskirt of the area. This area was very extensive, and there were cultivators from various top forces stationed in different directions. Among them, some of the forces had cultivators with terrifying aura, along with shockingly powerful lineups. Previously, compared with other top forces, the camp of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, as represented by Futian, was definitely a strong one. Apart from their lack of a powerful existence who had survived the second divine tribulation, few forces could be compared with them. However, in this city of the relic, he discovered several forces that were stronger than theirs. The Dark World was a foregone conclusion. The Infernal King was there with top figures of many forces from the Dark World. In addition, there were many cultivators from the empty divine realm, which Futian had not seen before. Obviously, they had come here after the changes in the original realm had intensified. If these two principalities had arrived for a while, in another position, there was a group of powerful men with extraordinary temperament, exuding awe-inspiring righteousness. Every one of them had an outstanding posture and unparalleled style. And any one of them seemed to possess a particularly stunning style. Are those the cultivators from the human realm? Futian thought. Cultivators from the devil world were in another direction, and their temperament was unmistakable. Xiao Mu, who Futian had defeated, was also among them. The Western world was composed of Buddhist cultivators and would be easily identifiable. By way of deduction, these could only be cultivators from the heaven realm or the human realm. However, the heaven realm was shrouded in mystery and had undergone major travesties. This group of cultivators had such an outstanding temperament that the only possibility was that they were cultivators from the human realm. Aside from that, there were many top forces from Divine Prefecture, including some with astounding temperaments. After all, the original realm was still considered the territory belonging to Divine Prefecture, so it was not surprising that most of these cultivators were from Divine Prefecture. Top forces from all sides were represented here, but clearly, that was not the case with other realms. Some of the top figures from Divine Prefecture were not any lesser than the cultivators from imperial palaces of each world. Here, ordinary genius talents were eclipsed. While Futian observed these cultivators, other cultivators were also observing him, as many divine consciousnesses fell upon him. Clearly, they already knew who Futian was. The dark world and the devil world needed no introduction, and many in the Divine Prefecture also knew of him. Those cultivators who were constantly scanning Futian with their divine consciousness were mostly people who had never seen him before but knew him only by reputation. He was the genius talent who ruled the original realm as a Renhuang in the seventh realm and the number one man in the original realm. He was the one who had suppressed all the geniuses in the Divine Prefecture, the heir of several great emperors, and no one who could compete with him. In addition, there was also a mysterious teacher in Four Corner Village who was solidly behind him, protecting him. He who might even be a mysterious cultivator of the imperial realm. Many of these divine consciousness that landed on Futian seemed quite impertinent, and it displeased him. Peeping using the divine consciousness itself was an impolite act, and mostly it was done with a quick sweep, enough to know the existence of the other. However, if the scanning was done back and forth for a prolonged period of time, it was regarded as an act of open insolence. However, at this moment, many were behaving rudely. They had been looking up and down at Futian as their divine consciousness continued to scan him. Some of the divine consciousnesses were particularly rude, which caused Futian to frown. He laughed coldly, sending out his own divine consciousness instantly. It collided with that other divine consciousness. Some of them retreated on their own, but some persisted, choosing to confront him head-on. Although Futian was not from any imperial palace, he was the heir of several great emperors and lord of the original realm. His position was so exceptional that no matter who challenged him, he would never back down. A super-aggressive divine consciousness collided with Futian's. When he traced that divine consciousness, Futian found its owner. A group of remarkable characters stood together, one of whom was wearing a golden robe, richly decorated. His aura was stunning with coercion that could only be found on an upper Renhuang. He was extremely domineering, and he was surrounded by brilliant golden divine glory. Cultivator from the empty divine realm, Futian remarked to himself, recognizing where the other was from. Boom! A violent storm swept across the sky and headed his way. The cultivator from the empty divine realm cast a look at Futian from very far away, and those eyes seemed to penetrate the space and landed directly on Futian, with an overpowering spirit. Like a majestic and commanding god, examining Futian closely. 20-some years ago in the original realm, the empty divine realm had tasted defeat in Futian's hands. A sudden coercion of this great path was felt keenly by everyone, as an equally astonishing momentum erupted from Futian's body at the same time. The divine light circulated above the body of the great path, and a violent roar was heard, booming non-stop, terrorizing its audience. When the two forces collided in midair, an invisible storm manifested in the surrounding spaces so that cultivators from all sides were compelled to watch the two colliding in the air. When the crowd saw the scene, they understood what was going on. It looked like the cultivator from the empty divine realm intended to test out Futian's abilities. Now, all the cultivators from various worlds knew of Yi Futian's existence. Even if they had never seen him before, they had at least heard of him from word of mouth. Many people were discussing him even now. He was the top monstrous figure in the original realm, a young ruler, and the successor of the inheritance of a few great emperors. The cultivator from the empty divine realm and Yi Futian stood at different locations. They were very far away from each other. However, for figures at their level, this distance amounted to nothing. The frenzy storm swept towards the region where Yi Futian was, but none of the buildings were destroyed. This caused many people to be impressed by the sturdiness of the buildings around. Right at this moment, the cultivator from the empty divine realm flew up into the sky. His whole body shone with brilliant golden divine light. Xiao Mu from the devil world looked in his direction. This cultivator from the empty divine realm also had 8th tier cultivation like Xiao Mu. However, it was most likely very hard for him to pose any threat to Yi Futian. Golden divine light enveloped the space. The illusory figure of an ancient god appeared. It raised its arm and instantly sent out a punch. Disregarding the long distance, the golden fist tore the space apart and blasted towards Yi Futian. This attack was similar to the one Yi Futian had experienced before. It seemed like many cultivators from the empty mountain were proficient in this kind of divine technique. Yi Futian extended his arm and pointed a finger in the air. An indestructible sword actually formed, and it directly collided with the golden fist. A terrifying destructive storm erupted, expanding towards the surrounding area. Impressive! Many people exclaimed upon seeing Yi Futian's attack. Yi Futian comprehended the body refinement techniques from the divine corpse of Xinjiao the Great Emperor. The body refinement techniques allowed Yi Futian to forge the divine body of the Great Path. His flesh could now become the way and unleash unparalleled might. His casual pointing contained both the strength of his flesh and the power of swordsmanship. When the two powers combined, a powerful force burst forth. The other party was also aware that his attack couldn't possibly shake Yi Futian. Otherwise, Yi Futian would not be qualified for his title as the top monstrous figure of the original realm. A gigantic illusory figure suddenly appeared and loomed over the region. Even the sky was tainted gold as golden beams of light shone across the land. In the sky above, a frightening golden storm was brewing. It was menacing. All the cultivators in this region raised their heads to look up. Then, countless arms appeared behind the ancient god. The arms veiled the heavens. All the arms attacked at once. In an instant, the entire sky was covered with golden fists. All the fists charged towards Yi Futian, seemingly wanting to overwhelm him. The divine fists rained down from the sky. Everything was distorted due to the punches. The terrifying punches shattered the space and smashed down towards Yi Futian, intending to bury him in them. The attack was absolutely domineering. Yi Futian raised his head and swept a glance at the fists. The space of the great path froze, and rumbling sounds thundered. Doors of space materialized all around Yi Futian. The doors engulfed the golden punches which rained down on him. With Yi Futian's body as the center, the doors of space formed a unique space. It was a miniature world. However, even with the defense, the frenzy fist will traverse across the space, causing the miniature world to shake violently. The doors showed signs of cracking. Yi Futian's expression was calm. He cast a glance in the distance. An alarming sword will instantly erupted from his divine body of the great path. He pointed a finger at the sky. A divine sword immediately traversed the space and crushed the incoming fists. The divine sword shot up to the high heavens. It was a gigantic starry divine sword, yet it also contained the menacing sword will of fleeting. All the cultivators turned their attention to Yi Futian. Yi Futian stood at his spot quietly, and wielded the divine sword in his hand. The scene was magnificent. He swung his arm, and instantly, the starry divine sword slashed down. It cleaved the space and shattered the countless fists. The sword then plowed towards the cultivator from the empty divine realm. The cultivator from the empty divine realm had an indifferent expression. The golden illusory figure of the god, which was coalesced by the cultivator, extended both its arms and made a grab. When the sword descended, the illusory figure grabbed it with both its hands. Shocking rumbling sounds thundered. The sword continued to slash downwards, causing cracks to form on the pair of golden arms. Bang! With a loud bang, the starry divine sword which spanned across the sky crumbled into pieces. However, the arms of the golden illusory figure of the god were also chopped off. Futian didn't stop attacking. He pointed a finger upwards, and immediately, a diagram formed in the sky. It was a yin-yang diagram. The diagram kept expanding. The sun and the moon seemed to be up in the sky at the same time, while the stars twinkled mysteriously. The power of yin and the solar power, two polar opposite powers, appeared concurrently in the yin-yang diagram. The powers gave birth to sword will that caused the cultivator from the empty divine realm to feel threatened even from a distance. Renhuang Yi is undoubtedly the top monstrous figure in the original realm. I'm impressed by your ability, said the eighth to Renhuang from across the space. This was his first time speaking to Futian. Prior to this, he attacked Futian without saying anything first. It seemed like he wanted to take revenge on Futian for meddling in the affairs of the empty divine realm before this. The outcome of our battle has yet to be decided. It's still too early to speak of admiration, Futian said indifferently. As he said this, the floating yin-yang diagram radiated a shocking halo of the swords of catastrophe. The halo outshone the sun. Just like how the other party intended to overwhelm him with fist will, Futian returned the favor by having the divine swords of catastrophe rain down on him. The divine swords flooded the space and charged towards the eighth tier cultivator. The cultivator took a step forward. Loud rumbling sounds reverberated. The gigantic golden illusory figure of the god coalesced. The radiance behind the god shone far and wide. It formed a spatial barrier, which covered the area where the cultivator was. Swoosh! Countless divine swords rained down. The swords infused with the power of yin and the solar power landed on the light shroud. Slowly, cracks began to form on it, and pieces of the light shroud were being chipped off. Soon, the defensive light shroud formed by the illusory figure of the god was torn apart and disintegrated. The divine swords slashed downwards with a momentum that could destroy everything in their path. Right at this moment, a cultivator from Empty Mountain raised his hand. A golden geomantic compass appeared in the sky. It kept expanding as it dazzled with colorful lights. When the divine swords descended, they were sucked into the geomantic compass. Then, they disappeared without a trace. It was as though the swords had been engulfed by the compass. The yin-yang diagram floated high in the sky while the spatial geomantic compass guarded down below. The two faced each other. When Futian saw this scene, he waved his hand, and the yin-yang diagram immediately disappeared. He looked into the distance and said, "As expected of the cultivators from Empty Mountain, I'm impressed by your ability." Futian said the same line that the other party had said to him before. However, the subtext was significantly different. Futian was clearly mocking the other party. After all, the cultivator from Empty Mountain attacked Futian first, yet in the end, he needed to seek aid from another top cultivator in order to block off Futian's attack. The cultivator's action was slightly disgraceful. From this battle, all the cultivators from various worlds had a better understanding of Futian's abilities. He was very strong. Even an 8th tier cultivator from Empty Mountain was no match to him. Futian didn't even move from his spot. He merely stood at his original spot and sent out attacks from across the space. Yet, his attacks were already unbearable for the 8th tier cultivator. Futian's combat ability was indeed astonishing. The cultivator from Empty Mountain was stronger than most of the cultivators. This meant that even among the 8th tier Renhuangs, only very few of them could defeat Futian. All the cultivators paid attention to this battle. Moreover, they were all exceptional figures from various top forces. Many top figures were ablaze with fighting will as they looked at Futian. They were eager to test out how strong he was and whether or not they could be a match for him. Chapter 23-23 The Lost Clan. Futian sensed the battle intent, which wreathed around him. However, he ignored it. All those who were here were top figures from various worlds. It was normal for them to want to contend with the most monstrous figures from other worlds. Yi Futian's arrival caused them to focus their attention on him. Even without him around, the rest of them would still contend among themselves. Yi Futian's will expanded towards the unusual region ahead. The region was packed with buildings that were sturdy and simple in design. The buildings were cone-shaped and were spread out across various locations. The total space occupied by the buildings was wide. The buildings seemed to be surrounding a main building, which emanated a mysterious aura. Unfortunately, the power around formed a barrier, sealing off the main building. No one could probe any further with their will. With his will, Yi Futian could see that many cultivators were dwelling in the region. Their auras were formidable. Besides that, their auras were somewhat similar, indicating that they most likely cultivated the same techniques. They gave off an otherworldly vibe. Yi Futian and his group had just arrived, but some of the other cultivators had been here for a long time. Yet, they remained outside and had not entered the region. From the looks of it, it was not that they had no intention of entering the region, but rather, their entries were blocked by the people inside. It was intriguing. Had the cultivators inside the region stopped the cultivators from various worlds from entering? The people gathered here were all top figures from various worlds. Every one of them was a terrifying existence. Some of them had even undergone divine tribulations of the Great Path. How did the locals manage to block them from advancing into the region? Yi Futian was not the only one who thought of this problem. All the cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy realized it too. Through transmitted thoughts, Huangchen told Yi Futian, "The cultivators inside are not simple. They might be very strong." Yi Futian nodded in agreement. There was definitely a reason behind every abnormal situation. The scenario before their eyes now was clearly abnormal. In terms of combat abilities, even the cultivators of the Ziwei segmentum back then could not hold off the lineups that were here today. The former would not even risk holding off the latter either. However, right now, the cultivators had indeed been blocked from entering the region. This was obviously abnormal. "Let's find a place to rest in Shini City for now. We'll wait and see how things go," suggested Ren Huangchen. The top figures from various worlds had all settled down at different places. It was unwise for Yi Futian and his group to stick their heads out. It was better for them to observe the situation and then figure out exactly what kind of place the unusual region was. "All right," replied Yi Futian, nodding. The group left where they were and found a simple tavern to rest. They were hoping to gather some information about the unusual region here. After all, they rushed here in a hurry. They made their way here right after they found out the center of the Shini continent was here. Therefore, they knew nothing about the unusual region. There were quite a lot of people drinking in the tavern. Occasionally, some locals would look at Yi Futian and his group. Even though the locals were curious, none of them asked Yi Futian anything. All of them appeared calm. Many people had gathered in the city recently. They knew where these visitors were from, so they got used to seeing new faces. All the cultivators in the Shini continent had high receptivity. On the other hand, Yi Futian discovered something astonishing to him. Along his way here, he had realized that the cultivation planes of the cultivators in this continent were generally higher than that of the outside world. Moreover, the cultivators in this continent had exceptional temperaments. This observation held true, especially after they arrived at Shini City. In this ordinary tavern alone, there were a few renhuangs. Furthermore, Yi Futian actually acutely sensed a hint of animosity from a few locals. He had no idea why they were hostile to his presence. More and more people slowly gathered in the tavern. The people who came all had rather high cultivation planes. There were even some top-tier renhuangs around. They sat down in the tavern quietly as though they weren't paying attention to the other guests. However, Yi Futian could vaguely sense that these people had gathered here because of him and his group. Ren Huangchen frowned. As he lowered his head to take a sip from his cup, he said to Yi Futian through transmitted thoughts, "Palace Lord, aside from people in this tavern, there seem to be more and more people heading towards where we are." Yi Futian expanded his will, and it covered a large area. In his consciousness, many images flashed past. There were a lot of locals who appeared around those cultivators from the top forces. On top of that, more and more people were gradually making their way towards this region. There was a constant stream of renhuangs traversing across the sky and landing in the city. What are they here for? Yi Futian asked through transmitted thoughts. Should I go check things out? Ren Huangchen suggested. Just when Yi Futian was about to say yes, a group of people entered the tavern. They were acquaintances of Yi Futian. Among them were Zhou Muhuang, vice chief of the Shangqing domain chief's manor, and his sister, Zhou Lingxi. Yi Futian also spotted the chief of the domain chief's manor. He had come here personally. Clearly, the chief was also here in the original realm due to the changes that had occurred to it. The chief of the Shangqing domain chief's manor approached Yi Futian. Yi Futian raised his head and looked at the other party. He greeted, "Greetings, chief." Yi Futian sounded polite, but he didn't stand up to salute the chief. He merely nodded his head. Under normal circumstances, even though Yi Futian's current status was extraordinary, he would still stand up and bow to the chief since he was their junior. However, Yi Futian didn't have a good impression of the chief of the Shangqing domain chief's manor due to past incidents. Therefore, he didn't do so. The other party noticed this difference in detail too, but he didn't show any signs of dissatisfaction due to Yi Futian's current status. Instead, Chief Zhou said, "I did not expect Ren Huangyi to attain such a great achievement in such a short time after our meeting at the Shangqing domain. Congratulations. Chief Zhou is too polite. Have a seat," Yi Futian responded. Since the other party showed signs of becoming friends with him, he would naturally treat them courteously. Chief Zhou and his group sat down. Zhou Lingxi said, "When I first met Ren Huangyi, I was already certain that you're an exceptional figure. But you much faster than I had imagined. Now, I pale in significance compared to you. Princess Lingxi has praised me too highly," Yi Futian said with a smile. "May I know what orders you have for me? My words can't be counted as an order for you. Yi Futian, you're the ruler of the original realm now, so you don't have to be so polite with me," Chief Zhou said bluntly. "I'm sure you are aware of the situation here. Those people are here because of us. They are here to protect that place, the center of this Shini continent and the dwelling place of the Lost Clan." "The Lost Clan?" Yi Futian revealed an intrigued expression. The name of the clan was indeed extraordinary. "Yes. The Lost Clan. Rumor has it that they called themselves the Lost Clan after they were abandoned by the gods. Since then, they have been on a journey of defying the gods," Chief Zhou explained. "Before your arrival, my group was already here. The Lost Clan is very strong, far stronger than what we expected. The cultivators from various worlds were shocked by their abilities. Hence, nobody dares to venture into their region now. The cultivators of the Lost Clan have frightening willpower. It might be due to the environment of this continent." Chapter 23-24, Rejection. Yi Futian listened quietly. He had already thought about this point. They should be one of the last groups of people to arrive. The top forces here had dispersed to different locations after they arrived. They had not ventured into the unusual region. Clearly, something had occurred before for the cultivators here not to dare to venture into the region. If that was the case, he roughly guessed the reason why the domain chief of the Shangqing domain chief's manor had come looking for him. Chief Zhou said, "According to my intelligence, after the Shini continent was abandoned, it has been traversing through the void all this while, floating among the various destructive storms. Over countless years, it experienced countless extinction-level calamities. However, it has lasted to this day. The main contributor for this is the Lost Clan." He continued explaining to Yi Futian. "The Lost Clan is not a family clan, but rather is formed from the members of the entire Shini continent. Anyone who joins the Lost Clan will offer up their lives. They will take an oath with their spiritual soul to protect this continent. The Lost Clan appears to be a family clan on the surface, but it is forged from the combined will of the entire Shini continent. It is indestructible. It is precisely because of them that we can witness everything before us now." From the other party's words, Yi Futian immediately understood the reason for the animosity from the surrounding cultivators. At the same time, he also understood why the various cultivators had all rushed over here. It turned out that this was the center of their faith. the place that the members of this entire continent wanted to protect. From the looks of it, the Lost Clan had protected the Shin'i continent through countless catastrophes and calamities. In the end, the continent had made its way to the original realm. From this perspective, the members of the Lost Clan were admirable. Futian felt a faint sense of respect well up inside of him. Such temperament was noteworthy. It was just like how he wanted to protect the original realm. Their belief was far stronger than his own. It was because the Shin'i continent was always on the brink of destruction. As the continent traversed through the void, the Lost Clan had no sense of security, and could be destroyed at any moment. Such dire circumstances formed an extraordinary clan. It similarly forged a group of exceptional cultivators. It was no surprise then that he discovered that their average cultivation planes were higher than those of any other continent that he had been to, including the lands of the Divine Prefecture. The people here were, on average, very powerful. Futian also noticed something else. On this vast Shin'i continent, the population was not very large and seemed rather scarce. Only here in Shin'i City was the population denser. Across the Yins, the harsh environment must have already performed natural selection on the Shin'i continent again and again. Hence, there was the Shin'i continent, and the Lost Clan that they saw today. Futian understood this in his mind but still did not speak up. He was waiting for the other party to bring it up. After Chief Zhou finished introducing all of this, only then did he say to Futian, "There is a barrier in the region of the Lost Clan that seals away a building. Prior to this, we wanted to enter that place. However, we encountered obstacles. Inside, there seems to be a secret zone. From within it, many extremely powerful cultivators emerged and deterred the various top forces from entering. Hence, resulting in the situation you see before you. You want to get inside?" asked Futian. "Of course, it is not just me. Cultivators from the various worlds all want to enter and take a look around. Is the Lost Clan hiding some mysterious secrets in there? Is it related to the great emperors of old? If we can get inside, we will certainly come across huge discoveries," continued Chief Zhou. "Hence, I have come looking for you. I actually want to form an alliance with you here." The chief of the Shangqing Domain Chief's manor wanted to ally with Futian. Naturally, it was not because of Futian's cultivation plane, but rather the powers behind him as well as the astonishing talent that Futian himself displayed. After all, Futian had proven himself so many times before. There seemed to be no relic that possessed the inheritance of the great emperors that had not been claimed by him. The scene before them was somewhat surreal. When Futian came to the Shangqing Domain Chief's manor back then, the chief had not considered him worthy of his attention. Back then, he merely wanted Zhou Muhuang and Zhou Lingxi to win over Futian, recruit him under the chief's control, and make Futian his underling. However, now, he wanted to ally with Futian. Futian looked at Chief Zhou, but he shook his head. He seemed to have decided to reject the other party's offer. This scene caused Chief Zhou to reveal a strange look. He took the initiative to extend Futian an invitation, but the other party had actually rejected his request for an alliance. The expression of Zhou Muhuang, who was beside him, also changed slightly. His gaze suddenly turned sharp as he looked at Futian. Even though Futian's status was extraordinary, their standing was also high. The Shangqing Domain Chief's manor was the most powerful force in the Shangqing Domain. They had proactively come to ally, but Futian had actually turned them down completely. "Chief, every time a relic appears, I also offend the various major forces. This time, cultivators from the various worlds have come here, including the forces of the human realm, the devil world, and the ancient god clan from the Divine Prefecture. Even with the power of the Heavenly Mandate Academy, I don't believe that I can deal with all of them. Can Chief Zhou handle them?" asked Futian. This caused Chief Zhou to frown. Futian continued, "If we can't obtain anything, there is no meaning to forming an alliance. If we truly manage to obtain rewards, will you stand with the Heavenly Mandate Academy to face the animosity of the various forces together? I believe that you know the answer yourself." To put it bluntly, the Shangqing Domain Chief's manor sought an alliance just so that they could rely on his power to obtain rewards. However, When the Heavenly Mandate Academy truly faced danger and if they went against the superpowers, the Shangqing Domain Chief's manner would most likely not dare to offend them. The so-called alliance would naturally be meaningless. When he heard Yi Futian's words, Chief Zhou's expression turned sullen. He appeared somewhat displeased. Yi Futian exposing this point was actually a slap in the face for him. Although what Yi Futian said was true, from his attitude, it was clear that Yi Futian didn't want to deal with him. "If that is the case, farewell then," said Chief Zhou. He then led the cultivators of the domain chief's manor away with a somewhat displeased expression. Zhou Lingxi looked back and glanced at Yi Futian. However, she did not say anything but followed the group and left. After the cultivators of the Shangqing domain chief's manor left, Emperor Nan said, "Such a direct rejection will probably offend others." "This isn't the first time anyway," said Yi Futian nonchalantly. This was not the first time the Shangqing domain chief's manor was displeased with him. During the struggle over the sacred remains of Xinjiao the Great Emperor, the domain chief's manor had already been very dissatisfied with him. Back then, Zhou Muhuang had even headed over to Four Corner Village to demand the village be handed over to him. It could be said that both sides were not on good terms, to begin with. Since that was the case, Yi Futian did not need to fake politeness and accept the other party's alliance. Responded Emperor Nan as he nodded his head. He did not mind anyway. Yi Futian had also offended other forces aside from the Shangqing domain chief's manor. In the previous struggles over the relics, he had offended countless top forces. However, his offenses towards them could not be considered huge vendettas, merely fights over personal interests. Wills swept over them. It seemed that the arrival of Chief Zhou just now had drawn the attention of some people. They were spying on the situation over here. Yi Futian did not pay it much heed. However, he was somewhat curious about the Lost Clan. Chapter 23-25, Entering the Lost Clan. Yi Futian waited quietly in the tavern. Everyone seemed calm enough. They, too, were probably just waiting. While they were chatting, the entire tavern suddenly quieted down. Yi Futian and the others were alarmed when they saw the majority of the cultivators in the tavern get up from their seats. This collective action surprised Yi Futian and the others more than just a little. He didn't expect so many of the cultivators in the tavern were loyal to the Lost Clan. Outside the tavern, there was a group of people walking in this direction. Suddenly, all those who stood up greeted the cultivators who were coming this way. Their respect was clearly coming from their hearts, not simply a matter of formality. This sight was actually quite touching for those who witnessed it. This group of men came in front of Yi Futian and the others. When Yi Futian looked up at them, he already knew these were the cultivators from the Lost Clan. He knew it when they came, he just didn't know why they came to him. In his assessment of these cultivators from the Lost Clan, he could see all of them were powerful in their cultivation with high realms. They weren't clad in lavish clothes but were dressed rather plainly. Some of them even had tattered clothing simply draped on their shoulders, revealing bronze-toned skin underneath. Even in such unremarkable attire, nothing could conceal their extraordinary temperament. Just standing there, they felt quite solid, like towering mountains. There was not a strong sense of authority, but everyone could detect a strong sense of will and belief. It was a unique temperament from within. Yi Futian had known enough powerful cultivators to know that not many people were like this. But all the cultivators in front of him were like this. Aside from that, they exuded a great feeling of power just by standing there. They were like some indestructible existence. "We are cultivators from the Lost Clan, here to welcome Emperor Yi and cultivators from Heavenly Mandate Academy, Ziwei Segmentum, as well as Four Corner Village." The person leading the group greeted Yi Futian and the others. His hands were clasped together, somewhat resembling Buddhist etiquette, but it was a little different. However, his sincerity was obviously from the heart, as he treated the whole affair with great importance. What piqued Yi Futian's interest was that these people had actually discovered their identities, knew where they were from, and who they were. It seemed that after the Shini continent appeared in the original realm, not only did the cultivators of the original realm come to explore it, but the cultivators from the Lost Clan had also gone to the original realm to explore on their own, hence, their knowledge of them. Faced with such courtesy from the other party, Futian got up and returned their gesture. Elder is overly polite. If our abrupt visit has disturbed the lost clan, we ask for your forgiveness. No disturbance to speak of. We have been floating in the void world for many years and have never seen anyone from the outside. Now that there are visitors from everywhere, please know that the lost clan is not inhospitable. The lost clan is more than happy to make friends with Emperor Yi and all of you. That's why we came here to invite Emperor Yi to be our guest so that you may get to know a bit more about us. The man continued. He caught Futian and the others by surprise. The lost clan had invited him to be their guest. Weren't they worried about letting wolves into the chicken coops, so to speak? Anyone could tell that the cultivators from the original realm and the other major worlds had unfriendly intentions, and each came with their own designs in mind. Futian looked at the man and asked, Did the elder mean to invite us to the lost clan for a visit? Yes, exactly. But because we don't know you, we want to first invite Emperor Yi to visit the lost clan so that you may get to know us. The voice of the other man was calm and full of energy. Many cultivators around him looked at Futian. Now that the lost clan had invited many people, would Futian agree to go? However, the cultivators from the Heavenly Mandate Academy frowned and were a little unsure. They had already known that the lost clan was a highly unusual clan whose strength may be great beyond their imagination. Perhaps even the Heavenly Mandate Academy itself might not be enough to contend with them, let alone Futian on his own. Once Futian entered the lost clan, he would be under the control of the other party. If the lost clan had some malevolent intent, he would end up in a very undesirable situation. You don't know much about us, and we don't know much about the lost clan either. It may not be suitable for him to travel by himself. Fang Gai stepped forward. Futian's safety was of great importance to them. This was their number one concern. In that case, we don't have to invite only Emperor Yi. Even if every one of you joins him in the lost clan, it's all the same to us. The man bowed slightly and replied. His mannerism was still courteous, but there was an immensely strong confidence in his tone. What he didn't say with his words was that if the lost clan had any bad intentions toward them, the outcome would be the same no matter how many of them attended, so there was no need to invite just Futian. The cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy looked at them in silence, but Futian smiled and said, I believe in you, Elder, and I am willing to go with you for a visit. He had been curious about the lost clan before. Now that the lost clan had taken the initiative to invite him, he was willing to go along and take a look. Thank you, Emperor Yi, for your understanding. The cultivator from the lost clan continued. In that case, Emperor Yi, please come with me. Elder, please lead the way. Futian replied. Immediately the cultivator from the lost clan led the way in front, while Futian followed behind, and cultivators from Heavenly Mandate Academy walked out of the tavern to see them off. As they spread their divine consciousness far and wide, they discovered that other cultivators, who had also been invited, were heading in the direction of the lost clan. It seemed that they had not invited just the Heavenly Mandate Academy, but other principalities had been invited as well. No wonder they invited just one person. If they had invited everyone, they might encounter some issues. After a few moments, Futian and the others came to the outskirt of the lost clan, and Futian discovered that cultivators were coming from different directions. These people had spread their divine consciousness far and wide and discovered each other's existence. Emperor Yi, please enter. The man continued as Futian stepped into the lost clan. Seeing that other principalities were also invited, Futian understood that the lost clan couldn't possibly mean them any harm. Otherwise, they would offend everyone at once, and no matter how powerful the lost clan was, they could not possibly endure collective hostilities from every principality. So, what was their intention? Inside, the lost clan was massive, with a sense of great solemnity. The buildings within its bounds were simple and scattered, but they felt weighty, just like the cultivators from the lost clan. Several cultivators began coming out of a simple room, looking at Futian and other cultivators from different principalities. Suddenly, Futian felt a heavy pressure. This pressure was not intended for him but was a signature specific to the cultivators of the lost clan. It was a substantial presence that made others feel its heft. Very soon, the cultivators who entered the Lost Clan from different locations gathered together. Every one of them was an exceptional character in their own right. Some were strong while some were weaker, all at various realms. Some had survived the divine tribulation of the Great Path, and some were heirs of lofty statuses from top principalities. These cultivators were also here by invitation of the Lost Clan. They now appeared in front of that forbidden building. Futian looked at the forbidden place in front. The space seemed heavily distorted. This was the center of the entire Lost Clan, and all the buildings seemed to surround the forbidden place in front of him. Obviously, this was a place of importance for the Lost Clan. Other cultivators knew better. They had seen many top cultivators from the Lost Clan who came out of this place before. Everyone, please. The cultivators of the Lost Clan stepped forward to guide them. Suddenly, a door swung open in the twisted space in front of them. Futian and the other cultivators stepped into its threshold, and it felt as if they were traveling through a tunnel of time and space, entering another world. There was a terrifying spatial power of the Great Path here. They could even feel many places inside, with distorted spaces as well. It was so deep ahead that no end could be seen. In here, their divine consciousness seemed to be distorted as well, unable to cover as great of a distance as they used to before, so they had to resort to using only their eyesight. However, as far as their eyes could see, there were many greatly capable cultivators with their own terrifying aura, accompanied by monstrous cultivations. Just the sight from their eyes alone gave the others invisible coercion. It was as those eyes held a frightening brilliance. "What is this place?" asked a man who appeared no more than 30 and had a most unusual temperament. This man was a talent from the human realm. His appearance seemed typical, but he possessed a pleasant presence. "The true core of the Lost Clan. Didn't you come here to unearth the secrets of the Lost Clan? The true meaning of the Lost Clan lies here," said an elder from the Lost Clan who had led them here. "We can talk while we walk." As he was explaining, he continued to lead the way and took everyone deeper inside. At the same time, he said, "Shini continent was a land abandoned by the gods in ancient times. For countless years, it had been exiled in the void, having never known which way to go or what would happen tomorrow. It was like facing a night that would never end. According to legends, the Shini continent was not like how it is now in that bygone era. It was perhaps many times larger than today, truly a grand world in every sense of the word. However, in the many years of exile, it had long since fallen apart and broke into different pieces. More than that, many of the cultivators on the continent perished. It was many years ago, a time we referred to as the Dark Ages." The old man of the Lost Clan continued slowly. "Until later, an original ancestor, the one who created the Lost Clan, came about and banded everyone together in order to fight against the perils of the unknown and realm of death. As the number one cultivator of the continent took command over the cultivators on the continent, they fought against the Dark Ages. From then on, the Shini continent entered the era of the Lost Clan." Futian and the others listened quietly, no one interrupting. The old man was telling them the origin of the Lost Clan, and all of them were interested in this mysterious clan. Furthermore, this ancestor of the Lost Clan must have been a magnificent figure. No one knew what kind of realm he was in, what happened to him, or if he had fallen. After establishing the Lost Clan, extraordinary cultivators of the continent voluntarily joined the clan and worked together to guard Shini continent. So that in a very short time, the Lost Clan became the undisputed premier principality of this land and the place where everyone held their faith. All those who wanted to join the clan must swear that they are willing to sacrifice everything, including their lives, to protect the continent. The ancestor of the Lost Clan fulfilled that oath with his own life. As did the rulers in the following generations and its top figures. They dedicated their lives to ensure the continued existence of the Lost Clan. Generation upon generation, it was precisely this belief that was guarding the Shini continent. Today, the Shini continent has finally left the endless darkness and come to the original realm. Before, we thought that this was just another area in the land of the exiles. But then we learned that Shini continent might no longer need to experience the darkness as it once did. Futian was quite moved when he heard these words. Did generations of leaders really use their own lives to protect the Shini continent? Moreover, the fact that they were top cultivators made it even more remarkable. Such sacrifice required firm conviction and fearless courage to achieve. If so, then everything that happened outside could be explained. Knowing that the Lost Clan was under threat, cultivators from all parts of the continent had rushed to the same place. If there were a war, those cultivators who came would probably do all they can to fight. This was some amazing faith. Only those who had faced desperation year after year, living in constant darkness, would have such belief, thinking that only if everyone had the same goal to protect the continent as a whole could they survive. If it weren't for those men who persisted in this kind of belief, perhaps Shini continent wouldn't be here today. The endeavor of your ancestors, generation upon generation, was indeed admirable, someone remarked, and everyone seemed to be in awe. No matter what purpose drove them here, hearing this history incited respect from every one of them. They continued moving forward. The inside seemed extremely deep, with no end in sight. Many caves and recesses appeared on both sides, and it seemed that there was a bright divine light inside. The old man said, "After our ancestors created the Lost Clan, they opened up this area here, using them as the last pure land for the Lost Clan. If the Shini continent is broken apart, the people can still seek shelter and continue their existence in exile. The caves in here were left by generations of cultivators from the Lost Clan and are engraved with their cultivation methods. Later generations had left their deeds inside these caves so that even if Shini continent was broken apart, the people who made it here could still cultivate inside these caves and continued their exile in the endless darkness until the arrival of dawn. This was the worst-case scenario." Everyone nodded slightly, as they started to believe in what the old man was saying. Looking at everything inside, it was true that it appeared as the last refuge of a band of desperate folks. Its existence ensured the continuation of the Shini continent. It was a holy land built by the sages before them, who were planning for the worst. Some of the caves in here are now occupied by cultivators who were actively cultivating. The cultivation methods created by our ancestors have been passed down from generation to generation, and they have all been engraved in there, still teaching the later generations, as they inherited the will of our ancestors while continuing moving forward until this point, where we have come to the original realm and met you all. The old man continued, "This is the general situation of the Lost Clan. You are welcome to walk around and take a look. The Shini continent has drifted to the original realm, and naturally, we don't want to be enemies with any of you. We hope to make your acquaintances and become part of this world." Chapter 23-27, Secret Zone Paradise. After hearing this, everyone nodded. But someone suddenly asked bluntly, "Can we enter the Secret Zone Paradise to observe the Enlightenment?" Immediately, the space hushed, perhaps too drastically. The attention of all the cultivators fastened on the old man from the Lost Clan, waiting to see his reaction. This was equivalent to asking whether or not they could use the Secret Zone Paradise handed down from the ancestors of the Lost Clan for their own cultivation. This was also the true purpose for all the various principalities to converge here. A continent appeared out of nowhere in the original realm with countless cultivators on it. No matter how one looked at this event, it was hard for anyone not to be excited by it. Inevitably an association with divine relic was made with the appearance of this continent. Although the words of divine relic were never mentioned, none of these cultivators would believe what they had heard. There was no doubt that most of what the old man said was true, but equally, there may be other things that the Lost Clan had omitted. Therefore, they wanted to explore this magical place for themselves to see if they could gain anything from it. Even if there were no inheritance left by a great emperor, they wanted to see the inherited power left by the supreme cultivators, who were the ancestors of the Lost Clan, for themselves. More importantly, were there other purposes hidden within this mysterious space? Hearing this demand, the old man from the Lost Clan shook his head and said, "The most precious treasures of the Lost Clan were housed inside this place, so we cannot disclose it to the public. Otherwise, would the Lost Clan still be considered the Lost Clan? Everything here is regarded as a top secret of the Lost Clan. Some of these places are considered forbidden areas, and even our own are not qualified to enter. Therefore, we hope you can understand our difficulty in complying with your request. Once, a similar scenario had played out in Ziwei Imperial Palace. Various principalities had descended upon Ziwei Imperial Palace at the same time, attempting to pressure the Imperial Palace to open the passageway into the starry sky world. The thing was that the Ziwei Imperial Palace had its own design at that time. It had actually allowed the top figures of all forces to enter intentionally, hoping to leverage their abilities to unlock the mystery of the starry sky. This secret zone paradise is truly amazing. It was formed with the forces of creation between heaven and earth. It is extremely rare to build such a secret zone for those in the Lost Clan to cultivate in. At this time, someone else said, however, we came from afar, filled with nothing but respect and awe for the Lost Clan. Why not let us enter and cultivate within the Lost Clan so that we may really become friends and solidify our friendship? Clearly, the man wanted to cultivate within the Lost Clan. Upon hearing his words, several cultivators nodded eagerly in agreement. After hearing about the history of the Lost Clan, it was true that most of them had the utmost respect for the Lost Clan. However, respect aside, it didn't mean that they would abandon their own mission so easily. Otherwise, why would they bother to come? They were beginning to realize that perhaps it wasn't so wise to come here. It was possible that they would not be able to gain anything for their trouble, after all. The cultivators of the Lost Clan frowned when they heard these words, and there were a lot of strange glances and expressions coming from the distance, displaying obscure but palpable displeasure. Suddenly, a powerful oppressive force shrouded this space. The invisible pressure alarmed those cultivators from outside, forcing them to tread very carefully. Although they were a conglomerate of many cultivators, it would probably still fall short of what they wanted to achieve. The Lost Clan wants to befriend everyone here, but it doesn't mean that we are willing to sacrifice our own interests to serve yours. Now, everyone who came here is among the top cultivators of various major principalities. Have you ever allowed any outsiders to force their way into your family or clan to cultivate? The old man's exhortation silenced everyone, and they were unable to refute his logic. Indeed, who among them would allow other outsiders to cultivate in their own clan under those conditions? And they were talking about their most excellent cultivation method, no less. The Lost Clan, of course, didn't want either. They were the premier clan on the Shuni continent, the leader of the pack. In that case, what is the purpose of inviting all of us here to the Lost Clan? Someone else piped up. The person who spoke was the top cultivator from the Devil World, Xiao Mu, the direct disciple of the Devil Emperor. Previously, he was defeated by Yi Futian and injured severely. It was the kind of injury that went beyond surface-level injuries. However, any existence at this level was fully capable of recovering from this kind of injury rather quickly. I have said before, it was for you all to learn more about the Lost Clan so that you can become friends. The old man looked at Xiao Mu and continued. Of course, if you still feel that wasn't enough and want to understand us better, the cultivators of the Lost Clan are willing to have a friendly exchange with you so you can experience firsthand the cultivation methods carved inside the secret zone paradise. The Lost Clan had already taken a step back before. But now, it didn't seem likely that they were willing to back down any further. The Lost Clan had its own profound heritage in cultivation. There was no lack of forces that had attempted to enter their land by force before, but they could not achieve it for a reason. How? Someone queried. The Lost Clan will set up a matrix for everyone to enter and challenge. The realm will be at the same level. The cultivator from the Lost Clan replied. How can you determine the outcome? Someone asked. If the Lost Clan loses, could we enter the secret zone paradise to cultivate? Yes, the cultivator from the Lost Clan said as he looked at the speaker. He then asked in return, since you want to be allowed to enter our secret zone paradise to cultivate upon victory, what are you willing to wager in return if you are defeated? The cultivator who spoke before now appeared dumbfounded. He hadn't thought about this scenario. What would happen if they lost the battle? If you win, you want to enter our secret zone paradise, which is the holding place of the ultimate treasures of the Lost Clan. However, if you are defeated, would you be willing to hand over the cultivation methods you used during the battle, letting the Lost Clan enshrine them in the secret zone paradise for future generations? The old man proposed rather casually, which sent that cultivator into silence yet again. If so, it would be a fair exchange for both sides. I have no objection on the matter. Futian shrugged indifferently. Many cultivators around him nodded as well, a strong sense of confidence in their eyes. In their opinion, how could they possibly be defeated? If no one objects, let's go outside for the fight. It is not suitable to battle here. The old man from the Lost Clan directed. Everyone nodded and followed his lead to head outside. At the same time, many cultivators from the Lost Clan began to emerge as well, and some cultivators with phenomenal skills came out of the secret zone paradise with a shocking aura. For example, from the secret zone paradise at this moment, a shirtless middle-aged man appeared. His upper body seemed to be cast in golden bronze, and infinite power exuded from his entire person. His body seemed to be made out of gold. It was immortal and indestructible, like it could never be broken. The cultivator in the secret zone paradise had a golden halo hovering above his head as if crowned by divine light, and it was radiant beyond description. He, too, walked toward the outside. Successively, in that unique isolated space of the Lost Clan, extraordinary figures came out one after another from the secret zone paradise, and everyone had a superb temperament. For countless years, the Lost Clan had been guarding this continent, protecting it from total destruction. They feared no death and had no regrets. They rarely fought major battles with anyone because there were not many opportunities to do so. But now, they had finally encountered the provocation of challenges from these human cultivators. All the outside cultivators walked out of the Lost Clan and returned to their respective camps. Cultivators from various forces inquired about the situation inside those forbidden buildings belonging to the Lost Clan, and were briefed by those who had returned. Futian returned amongst the cultivators from Heavenly Mandate Academy, and briefly recounted the Lost Clan situation. Everyone from Heavenly Mandate Academy was impressed with what they had heard and admired the Lost Clan for their persistence. As they understood it, their ancestors were awe-inspiring. They were willing to sacrifice everything to ensure the safety of the continent. The continent that was always pacing in front of death had strengthened these cultivators far more than the cultivators from the outside. Futian, what are you planning on doing? Emperor Nan asked Futian. He admired the spirit of the Lost Clan, and if they were to act against the Lost Clan, he would feel terribly uneasy in his heart. Let's first take a look at the strength of the Lost Clan. For the cultivator from the Lost Clan to make such a proposal, they must have absolute confidence in their own ability. Moreover, they already had some preliminary exchanges with the outside before and potentially have a better understanding of others' strengths. This is a resilient clan that was struggling on the edge of death, and perhaps they were much stronger than we had originally thought. Futian explained. Emperor Nan nodded in acknowledgement without saying anything further. At this time, cultivators from all principalities stepped forward. They floated high above the firmament, standing in different locations to peer inside the Lost Clan. Someone said loudly, "Requesting instructions from the Lost Clan. Please send a representative so the Lost Clan could dispatch cultivators of equal realm." A voice urged from the Lost Clan. A cultivator from the outside stepped forward, and it was a Renhuang of the 8th realm from a top principality of divine prefecture who was endowed with outstanding temperament. He said, "I wish to experience the strength of the Lost Clan." "Very well," came a response from inside the Lost Clan. Then 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan stepped out from different directions, and each one was a Renhuang in the 8th realm. Their temperaments were somewhat similar, and each of these men was a powerful and imposing presence in his own right. The 9 cultivators walked out at the same time, were stationed in different positions, and one of the cultivators from the Lost Clan said, "You are the top figures from every world, so we of the Lost Clan will cut you no slack in this battle. This battle matrix is of our most cultivated methods in resisting outside attacks, with 9 men acting as one. Of course, you can select 8 more cultivators of the same realm to join you in battle." As he was speaking, those 9 cultivators had started taking their positions already, standing in different directions, facing the challengers who were coming forward. Just by simply standing there, they emitted an incredibly unbearable oppressive force that actually made that cultivator from the divine prefecture feel a momentum that was nearly impossible to overcome. In this battle, it wouldn't be enough with just him alone. His gaze drifted to other principalities as if hinting for assistance. Suddenly, in different directions, some cultivators came forward one by one. They were all top-level Renhuang in the 8th realm. Among them, a cultivator who Yi Futian recognized also came forward. It was none other than Ninghua of the Donghua domain. "I assume you have been told that if you win, the victors may enter the secret zone paradise of the Lost Clan to cultivate. But if you lose, you will each hand over the methods you have used in the battle and store them inside the secret zone paradise. Therefore, when you employ methods while fighting, I urge you to think carefully before you act," the cultivator from the Lost Clan cautioned them. As soon as his voice trailed off, those 9 great Renhuang who had walked out immediately unleashed a monstrous coercion, and every one of them was surrounded by an extremely radiant divine light of the Great Path. Ninghua's eyes were shining with the divine light of the seal, directly aiming at the 9 opponents in front of him. The light pierced into their eyes. However, he felt that these opponents returned his gaze, and those eyes contained an incomparably steady will that seemed impossible to shake and even more impossible to imprison. He frowned instinctively. This one glance made him feel that he was in the presence of some very powerful opponents, far stronger than what he had expected, and every one of them seemed to be equally powerful. Buzz! The divine wheel of the Great Path shone brightly, as a gigantic seal pattern now appeared above the firmament, projecting a shocking divine glory. Its massive presence covered the sky and the sun and descended above the 9 great cultivators. The divine light of the seal fell down as if intending to lock these 9 cultivators in place. At the same time, other cultivators made their moves in unison, and each one of their moves contained a shocking attack. The cultivators of various forces looked towards the battlefield in the void, and saw the violent roar of the Great Path erupted from the bodies of the 9 cultivators. Extremely violent sounds of metal clashing were heard, sonorous and clear, as a golden light burst from their torsos. These lights turned into a substantial and palpable force, directly blasting onto the oncoming attacks. Above the void, there was a terrifying booming sound. The aura that erupted above their bodies already contained an unparalleled power. What was more terrifying was those golden bodies shining with the divine light between heaven and the earth. Their bodies were actually expanding, and when their flesh roared, their bodies turned into that of the ancient deities, standing in different positions like 9 statues of great gods. The roar of the Great Path inside their bodies had a certain resonance, which turned into a horrific Great Path sound wave that swept out. Suddenly, all the forces that were attacking them exploded and shattered, utterly destroyed. This sight stunned many cultivators, even those who were watching the battle from afar. They looked at the scene that was playing out before them with some surprise. Were these people really in possession of such terrifying combat effectiveness? More importantly, they hadn't even made their moves yet. Likewise, Yi Futian was looking at the battlefield at this time. He saw the power used by these cultivators. He understood that their physical forms were very strong and very possibly had already reached an extremely frightening degree, like that of a divine body. He thought of everything the Lost Clan had faced. Could it be possible that the cultivators of the Lost Clan had achieved such tyrannical form to withstand the external storms and cast this unbreakable defense with their own mortal flesh? Those cultivators continued to attack, but under violent physical coercion, the attack from the 9 cultivators who came forward couldn't even break through their opponent's defense. The resonance produced by the physical body of the Great Path was so strong that it was quite horrifying. Although Ninghua may not be considered a top figure in all of the Divine Prefecture, he was known as the #1 enchanting genius in the Donghua domain, and the combat effectiveness of the other cultivators with him was not weak either. However, at this moment, they were so passive on the battlefield, it greatly disturbed those who were watching the battle. It seemed that the strength demonstrated previously by the Lost Clan was not all that they were capable of, and their battle matrix was something even more terrifying to behold. That power of might was still expanding. Those ancient godlike figures stood between heaven and earth, as if they were immortal and had been there since the beginning of time. There were divine shadows now manifesting in the surrounding space, as they became one with heaven and earth. The coercion now came down and corralled the 9 mighty cultivators within, including Ninghua. It was as if the 9 of them had become prey in their trap. When everyone witnessed this sight, they understood that the outcome had already been determined. The battle had ended earlier than expected. Facing the lost clan, these 9 cultivators had no way to fight back. Chapter 23-29, Xiao Mu prepared for battle. Under the united front of the 9 cultivators, the great path boomed and howled continuously. Above the 9 godlike figures, the golden divine glory turned into divine walls that moved to suppress the 9 trapped in the middle. Ninghua and the others felt a suffocating coercion when they saw those oppressive divine walls closing in on them. The divine wheels of the great path bloomed upon them, releasing the strongest divine might to blast toward those divine walls. However, the walls shut everything down. Even the most powerful spatial shredding power could not shatter nor break it. Boom! The divine walls turned into a prison, continuously oppressing the 9 people within its bound. At this moment, the onlookers couldn't help but wonder if this was the kind of power that the cultivators of the Lost Clan had been using to protect the Shuni continent. This power was capable of sealing the void shut. It was as if multiple cultivators had worked together to release the power to the extreme, and it was possible to shroud the entire boundless space of the continent. Clang, clang, clang! Ninghua and the other cultivators attacked frantically but couldn't move those divine walls a single inch. They could only watch the walls continuously closing in on them and finally stopped not far away from where they stood. However, the walls trapped all 9 of them inside so that none could escape. None of their offensive moves could break this prison made of divine walls. "Are you planning to continue?" someone asked. The 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan stood outside the walls in different positions. The golden divine light surrounded them, and the sound of it rocked the void. Ninghua and the others stopped their attacks. They couldn't help but feel a deep sense of helplessness. They were, without exception, extraordinary enchanting geniuses in their own rights, and the attack that they employed were vast. Nonetheless, they couldn't even break free of the divine walls that kept them imprisoned. How could they continue to fight? "Respect," one of the men said, as they now had a new understanding of the strength demonstrated by the Lost Clan. The powerful battle matrix formed by the 9 cultivators was not something they could counter and overcome. Even if they were stronger, it would still be impossible. They had never expected that there would be a group of such terrifying and powerful beings existing upon this continent, which came out of nowhere. They were not the only ones who had this epiphany. The cultivators watching on the sidelines had the same realization as well, and there was a slight disturbance in their hearts. The cultivators of the Lost Clan were so powerful that they far surpassed their expectations. This level was already at the very top of cultivation as they knew it. More importantly, how many more cultivators like this were inside the Lost Clan? Those 9 cultivators seemed to have walked out purely randomly, so what about the others? The divine light sparkled as the 9 cultivators took down the divine walls. Suddenly Ninghua and his cohort felt great relief, as that sense of oppression disappeared. They looked at the 9 cultivators who, like deities, hovered above the sky, and they had no words to describe their feelings at the moment. Not only were they defeated, but they had been defeated so completely and miserably. It didn't take long for the battle to end, and it was clear that they didn't have any ability to fight back. They had not been able to pose even the slightest threat to those 9 opposing cultivators. This unexpected turn of events made them doubt their own abilities. They were the top figures from all continents, so why did they lose so miserably in front of these cultivators from the Lost Clan? Were there too many of them, or were the cultivators from the Lost Clan too powerful for them? Somewhat depressed, they turned to leave, returning to their own camps. The 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan were still there, but the old man behind the 9 now reminded them. "Everyone, don't forget what you promised in the case that you lost." These 9 cultivators narrowed their eyes slightly. The losers were required to send the methods they used to the Lost Clan's secret zone paradise. Was he serious in asking them to surrender the wager now? "Anyone else want to give it a try?" the old man from the Lost Clan asked. The 9 cultivators of the 8th realm were still there, surrounded by divine light, releasing a horrific aura, waiting for the next opponents. If someone continued to challenge them, they would continue to oblige. Among the crowd, everyone looked at the location where those 9 cultivators were. These outside cultivators seemed to be assessing whether or not they had the ability to break down those divine walls. The previous 9 challengers were not weaklings, but the strength of the 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan seemed much greater. At this moment, a cultivator stepped out, and his appearance surprised many cultivators, as their attention was now focused on the man who volunteered. It was none other than the cultivator from the Devil World and a direct disciple of the Devil Emperor, Xiao Mu. When Futian saw Xiao Mu walking forward, his eyes revealed a bit of shock. Xiao Mu was a cultivator of an extremely powerful physical refining method, and his physique was not much less than his own. In addition, his 9 slashes of the heavenly demon were incredibly powerful. There was no telling whether this level of attack would be able to shake the defense of those 9 powerful cultivators inside the battle matrix. However, Xiao Mu's cultivation method was the method of the Devil World, possibly passed down by the Devil Emperor himself. If he were to use it in this battle, what would happen if he was defeated? Did he really want to make a wager so tremendous that he could potentially hand over the cultivation method of the Devil Emperor himself to the Lost Clan? This seemed unlikely. Even Xiao Mu could not possibly decide something as grave as this. Not only him, but also no one from the Devil World present could make such a decision. If it was the demonic method passed down by the Devil Emperor himself, only the Devil Emperor himself could decide how the method would be passed on to the outside world. Without permission from the Devil Emperor, who would dare to make such a decision on their own? In this sense, Xiao Mu would be completely unable to fulfill the promise agreed upon by the cultivators from the Devil World. If he was defeated, he had no authority to hand over his cultivation method to the Lost Clan. For Xiao Mu to step forward under this condition, either he thought that he would definitely win or that he might have to renege on the agreement he had made earlier. This was something not only Futian knew without a doubt, but other cultivators as well. In fact, Xiao Mu was not alone in this predicament. Many of those present couldn't possibly make promises of this magnitude unless they planned not to use their own expert methods in the battle. However, in that scenario, how could they possibly defeat these powerful opponents? The 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan were no common folk. Xiao Mu's action attracted much attention. All of a sudden, cultivators stepped forward from other directions. Every one of the cultivators who stepped forward was a character with extraordinary temperament, and attracted attention from all sides. Several of them held extraordinary status so that the makeup of this group was far superior to the one before. Although Futian was not familiar with these cultivators who came out, he could feel their temperament. He realized that these people were far stronger than the previous 9, and their overall strength would be much more powerful. After they walked out, they came to a place high above the sky, standing in front of the 9 cultivators from the Lost Clan. A powerful aura bloomed from them, especially Xiao Mu. The demonic might tossed and roared, and even those who walked out with him could feel that oppressive force. The 9 people from the Lost Clan also felt a sense of threat, but they did not appear alarmed by it. Their expression was the same as usual, without the slightest bit of emotion. They stood in place, surrounded by the golden divine light of the great paths. Rounds and rounds of golden light screens spread out like waves of the great path, sweeping towards the 9 challengers. "Is everyone ready?" one of them questioned loudly as the sound of his voice shook the void. After his voice fell, an astonishing aura burst forth from those 9 opponents almost at the same time. In an instant, the demonic might overwhelmed the space, as demonic shadows appeared to shield the void. Xiao Mu took the lead to erupt with his own power. Chapter 2330 Battle Matrix of the Rocks. The golden divine light shone upon the 9 great cultivators from the Lost Clan, and the divine light that burst out from them flooded the sky. 9 massive and boundless shadows of the ancient gods appeared, covering the surrounding area as they stood above the sky. Those golden divine walls appeared again, sealing the void to imprison them within its bounds. It seemed that they were resorting to the same method as before. The monstrous demonic might gathered, and a demonic godlike figure appeared. Xiao Mu, likewise, burst out with an aggressive force as a dark demonic blade appeared above his head. A horrific apocalyptic aura now erupted from the demonic blade, unleashing the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon right off the bat. It seemed that Xiao Mu wanted to split open these divine walls in the most direct and domineering way possible. The rest of the cultivators also bloomed with their own extraordinary specialty. One stretched out his palms and saw that the palms became a golden color and kept expanding. There seemed to be the most brilliant golden divine light from the runes in the center of the palms. Needless to say, it contained incredible and horrific power. There was also a cultivator holding the infinite ruler. When he waved, the ruler expanded and clearly contained the terrifying power of the great path. They were curious to see just how strong this divine wall was. "You guys move first," Xiao Mu commanded, and the rest of his cohort nodded. Xiao Mu's status as the direct disciple of the Devil Emperor was lofty and supreme. He was probably the strongest of them all. There would be no questioning his authority in asking the others to move first. As attacks were blasted out successively and landed on those divine walls, suddenly, an astonishing destructive power erupted, causing the walls to vibrate and tremble. It was obviously more powerful than the previous attacks from those 9 people. After they unleashed their attacks, Xiao Mu's heavenly demon blade swung out, finding purchase on a weakened spot that was still trembling. Immediately, a crack appeared on the divine wall and spread quickly toward the inside. "Continue to attack there," said Xiao Mu. Instantly, the other cultivators began their furious and violent attacks on that very spot, causing the crack to widen. The second strike of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon slammed down and tore a giant opening on the divine wall, which spread madly towards its surroundings. The opening continued to enlarge as other cracks began appearing in other areas. Buzz! The gigantic and boundless infinite ruler was thrown out and turned into a sky full of shadows, covering the sky and obscuring the sun. This came along with the booming roaring of the great path and the unparalleled power of spatial shredding of the great path. No corner was spared. It had made contact with every part of the divine wall. Crunch! There was a violent cracking sound as many cracks appeared on the divine walls. The attacks from other cultivators followed in its wake, and the cracks expanded. Xiao Mu's third strike of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon smashed down for the kill. Finally, those countless cracks continued expanding faster until a light of destruction burst out. In an instant, the divine walls disintegrated and pulverized, completely in shambles. "What an amazing defense!" Futian applauded silently. Not for the attacks from the 9 cultivators but the sturdiness of the divine walls. They were too strong. Even a cultivator like Xiao Mu had to exert an inordinate effort to dismantle the walls. What kind of defense was this? Futian reckoned that even he himself could not have done it. The battle matrix formed by these 9 was incredibly awesome. He couldn't help but ask himself at this moment, if he was on the battlefield now, could he possibly break its defense? It was probably unlikely. After the divine walls were pulverized, the 9 great cultivators continued standing in those 9 positions without wavering. The ancient godlike phantoms overshadowed their bodies and were still expanding until they resembled the bodies of the ancient gods, shrouding this corner of the sky. When everyone saw this, they were beyond surprised. The bodies of the 9 ancient gods were connected. Their massive and towering bodies covered heaven and the earth as if to seal this space with bodies of flesh and blood. The hearts of many quivered. How strong would their physical defenses be? Xiao Mu and other cultivators fixed their attention on the 9 ancient gods surrounding the void. An overwhelming power of the great path gathered once again, and the light from the heavenly demon blade was shining. Jets of black destruction currents circulated ominously. They did not believe that the defensive power of these cultivators from the Lost Clan could be dominant enough to ignore their level of attacks. "Move at the same time," said Xiao Mu. Suddenly he moved to attack one of the ancient gods. The fourth strike from the heavenly demon blade unleashed. When the light of the blade bloomed, it seemed on the verge of crushing through the void as it smashed toward one of the ancient gods. Like him, the other 8 cultivators did the same. Each selected an ancient god and exploded with massive attacking power. For a time, within this space of the Great Path, terrifying storms of destruction erupted. Numerous destructive attacks blasted on the bodies of these 9 ancient gods at the same time. The terrifying power rocked the bodies of these ancient gods. Xiao Mu's broadsword will, especially, seemed to have penetrated the defenses crafted by the golden divine light and rushed into the bodies of the ancient gods. The residual waves of the attacks jolted the physical bodies of the cultivators shrouded inside these ancient deities, and the terrifying destructive force aimed to crush and kill them. Bang, bang, bang. The 9 great cultivators of the Lost Clan were impacted on their flesh by that tyrannical attack, but they remained standing firmly, as indestructible as rocks, unfazed. This! All the cultivators were shocked when they beheld this sight, including Futian. Physical bodies like this in the attack just now, he clearly felt that all 9 cultivators had been attacked. The one directly facing Xiao Mu had been hit the hardest. However, he was as solid as a rock, standing tall, like a truly invincible presence that would never fall. Moreover, the abilities currently demonstrated by these cultivators from the Lost Clan were their tyrannical and aggressive defensive powers, whether supernatural or physical. However, they did not demonstrate any substantive offensive moves. Could the environment be a factor? Their mission was to protect the Shin'i continent, so their main focus was on defense, not offense. But such tyrannical physiques almost guaranteed that their combat effectiveness would be equally horrific. They would, no doubt, be able to slay an ordinary existence of the same realm in the blink of an eye. The physical tyranny of these people was probably not much lesser than that of Xiao Mu. What Xiao Mu cultivated was the super-demonic form passed down by the Devil Emperor. Once more, Xiao Mu's eyes sharpened, and he became more somber as he made his command. He continued to gather an even stronger demonic might, and the 5th strike of the 9 slashes of the heavenly demon condensed into existence. Its power overwhelmed the sky, frightening to the extreme. He couldn't believe that he wouldn't be able to defeat this defense. At this moment, all 9 cultivators of the Lost Clan condensed the seals in their hands. Suddenly, phantoms of even more ancient gods manifested between heaven and earth, and invisible sounds of rhythm appeared in the void. Boundless and solemn, they made everyone feel an incredible heaviness. It seems that even Xiao Mu and his cohort cannot break the defense of the Lost Clan, Futian thought when he saw this. They were far stronger, and this force was indestructible. Sure enough, when Xiao Mu's 5th strike smashed down, the rest of the cultivators exploded with even stronger attacks, but the result was the same. All the powerful people from the Lost Clan stood in the distance, and quietly observing as this played out in front of their eyes. These 9 people were far from ordinary. They were cultivators carefully selected by the Lost Clan. The battle matrix of the rocks that they crafted was not something that could be easily broken. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.